Hello, everybody. Well, apparently, I lost my cam. What the hell?
Hello, hello.
What a way
Hello.
to start. I don't even see myself on cam.
Oh, we see you.
Oh, I guess let's move me down to here. That's probably why.
Ta-da!
Oh, wow. Look at that ugly mug. Apparently, he didn't think so. I knew it was going to come in handy somewheres, but I guess not. I guess we'll move him back over here somewhere. Good afternoon, everybody who has joined us today. Welcome for our truckers panel. For many of you that probably this will be a very informative thing for you today, and some of you it probably be like nothing new that a lot of you have that are already joined us with that already know about the trucking industry. Uh, my name is Gary. I'm from Interstate Travel Crew. As a lot of you already know, we've got great guests on here today. We got Champy Trucking with his own Twitch channel, Lone Star, aka Trucking, Miss Chili, and Big Stevie Workshop. So we're glad to have a lot of them join us today. We were supposed to have another person join us, but I don't think they got the message yet, which I don't think so. So we're going to have to get the show rolling here and get everything going. So today's topic is going to be about trucking, basically in general. Everything from probably first signing up with your application, all the process, what a lot of us have gone through, which most of us have gone through some sort of orientation training, ELD, vice versa. It's going to be a huge list today. So make sure Gary has pants on. Yes, Warner, I'll even show you. See, still got pants on. Never go without them. Pick that, Warner. So suck on that one, Warner. So, anyways, we're going to start our topic off with trucking. Definitely, I want everybody, we'll start with Champ first. When he started in trucking and everything else, and then we'll kind of go from Champ, Lone Star, Miss Jelly, Big Scoob. Like I said, we did have a talk beforehand of what we're not going to discuss in here, but just tell us your little bit of history in trucking, how you got into it, and what it's like for you, the process you went through, basically everything, getting your CDL and everything else, and we'll go from there.
Well, yep. Put me on the spot, huh?
Well, of course. Got to put
Yeah, my
somebody on the
name's
spot.
my name's Champ. Been around trucks my whole life. Started driving legally in 2010, and been doing it ever since. Everything from logging to reefer to a little bit of flatbed, and now I haul doubles in the LTL.
I feel sorry for you. All in doubles. Man, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work next to Lone Star.
Okay, so basically same thing with me. I started with I grew up in the group homes in Toronto in Canada, so I started up with a job placement through the high school when I was 12 with the international dealership. So I basically grew up around the trucks, and then basically I ended up getting all their training and stuff, and then so basically I turned 18, and they basically said, okay, well, you can go for your CDL so you can drive them legally because you were driving them illegally for 6 years. So I'm like, okay, fine. I went and did it, and then I basically just fell in love with the truck since a young age, and then uh, ended up buying my first one 19th birthday because I was like, well, I love them, and I went in also Cummings Caterpillar for trained technician on them. So I just basically grew up around them. And, I've hauled everything from ice roads in Alaska, the ice roads in northern Canada, the ice roads in Ontario and Manitoba. You see on ice road truckers. And I just love trucking and to try to tell people that and teach people that trucking isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle. And someday you got good years, someday got bad years. It's all about making memories, enjoying what you get every single day out of it. Now it's the birthday's next month, so that'll be 26 years around trucking. Pretty much my whole life.
Okay, Miss Jilly, you're next.
Well, I have a business background, but I grew up around trucks. My dad drove truck since I was little. Probably about 5 years after we came to Canada, he started driving truck. My husband was an AZ Class 1 driver and dispatcher for a carrier near where I live before he passed away. I had to leave work and look after him when he got sick, and I didn't want to go back into an office when life changed and moved on. So I went and got my CDL recently. I've been licensed for a year now. I went to school a year and a half ago. I paid $12,000 to get my CDL, and I am struggling to get work. The struggle is real. So anybody looking to get into trucking now, you need to really rethink that because yeah, it's not easy. Not easy at all. I've had a couple of gigs. Last year for 6 months, I used my AZ license to do something a little unorthodox. I moved a carnival for the season from May till October. All of their roller coasters and their housing and food trucks, and some of that was tandem, some of it was 53-foot trailer. But that's still not even enough experience to get in with a decent carrier.
Got anything else to add, Miss Jilly, or else Big Scooby can go next?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
Big Scoop, you're next.
All right. Well, I got my CDL in '98, and then I drove for the next decade or so, doing different things: flatbed, tanker, reefer, which I hated. I've done carnival work. I did that for 5 years. And then I got off the road in '08 because I got custody of my daughter. But I still drove, like dump truck or daily home stuff for a while. I haven't been in the industry for a while because of life stuff. So I'm pre ELD. So
Got anything more to add, Big Scoop, or are you pretty much done?
now none.
So for many of you, I've been into trucking for over 26 years. That's a long time. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm be considered a well, I don't know how to put this lightly, a well-used veteran.
Seasoned, Gary. You're seasoned.
Are you saying peppered or salted?
Both.
But for the most part, I'm a well-seasoned driver for the most part. I first started my early careers. I grew up on a dairy farm. Had miscellaneous welding jobs and this and that. I used to make windmill towers at one point in time. And I've done a lot of jobs in the meantime, worked on cars, welding, whatever else the case might be. But for the most part, welding was my main one. Welding on windmills, beautiful job. I worked 4 12-hour days, got time and a half after 8. If I worked on a Saturday, it was double time no matter what. If I worked on a Sunday, it was double time and a half. Any holidays was automatically double time. So it was good work. Good weekends, 3-day weekends all the time, unless I had to work. And the welding back then, it was that's what you called welding. I mean, working on a windmill tower that's 400 feet long with 4 sections. It was great work. My main job was mainly putting in sand and oil chambers in like Gamesa and the Vestas windmills, basically the top section. So that was like the work that I used to do. And then eventually they started laying people off, and they did 3 rounds. The first round was basically anybody in the office that was there like from the first time that had a high wage. They got rid of them. And then the second round came with the people that was like the lowest on the totem pole out on the factory floor. And then eventually the third round came when it hit me. So then they ended up giving me a severance package. And I was sitting there thinking, it's like, well, what am I going to do now? I mean, there's nothing that can compare to this. And normally, most times when I went for a new welding job, they said I was overqualified because, I mean, I was making well over 35 an hour at that time and everything else. So everyone said, well, we can't hire you. Well, by then, welding jobs went down from like $15-20 an hour down to almost like 13 an hour. And I was just like, well, I can't go and go do a job for something like that. So I was like, well, last best thing to do is, getting early in those ages, it's like, let's get into trucking. So I ended up going to school. And well, at first I started going into it because the way I did it was like the very old school way. I didn't really go to school except for like a refresher course, which was basically a week long and everything else. But I ended up going to get my get the test, get the books, because I actually had books at that time before a lot of it became online, and got the books, started reading them left and right. And finally I went and took the test for my temp test. Got that. I was working for a company, a very small company at that time, and I was doing welding work. So he's like, well, since you've been here for a long period of time, he was like, I'll tell you what I do. He was like, I'll let you kind of drive the truck. We won't put it on the insurance, put your name on insurance, because it'll jackrock sky the high the insurance, because the insurance world rules over the trucking like anything else nowadays. So I got to drive and got my experience that way. And then eventually we went for the CDL. And at that time, we had to do a third-party tester. So anybody that was at a company, that was on a third-party testing would take time out of his day in order to come and give me a driving test. And it could be whatever city. It could have been here, there, wherever else. But it was usually always in state. So I always had a different area to drive in. The first time is like, I think it's they fail you on purpose so that they can make money. I think it was like $250, $300 at that time. So, I mean, I had to come up with another amount of money for it to take the test a second time. And when I did, it was during the winter months. So I was really nervous and everything else, like anybody else would be for their first winter. But we eventually did pass. And then pretty much after that, it was hard to get into places. A lot of the people that are on our panel today, when they first started, they might have had it a little bit easier, but back then they wanted 2 years driving experience. And so I basically started working on a farm, that had a DOT number. And eventually I was hauling haylage, silage, and liquid manure from the pit right out to the field. And I worked there as pretty much within 2 years. And I worked with various farms. I actually worked for 3 farms at the time. So, I mean, it kind of helped me. If they didn't have work one day, I could go here another day and, keep busy. But that's how I ended up eventually getting my time in. And then eventually my first carrier that I actually went to that was over the road was Refrigerated. And basically I stayed with them for another, year and a half. And I was like, screw you. They just treated me bad, like a rotten piece of meat. They threw me out. They didn't care. So I was like, well, I'll get you back. When I come back, and I knew I was going to be in with a new company, basically I came in, and he started telling me, well, next week you got this, and this load. And I was like, well, here's your keys, here's your fuel card, F you, I'm out the door. And that was it. And then I ended up going to a different carrier back then. But yeah, seasoned. Yeah, I'm well seasoned, depending upon how you want to look at it. But it's been a road. I mean, a lot of that I give credit to was hauling expedited freight. And so the first 18 years of my career, I got to see all 48 states. And I don't regret any of it. It's just I was eager to want to see the world, well, see the United States, and hauling expedited was a great opportunity for me. And if I decided to probably go back hauling expedited again, I probably would. But I don't know. But anyways, today's topic is basically those getting into trucking or things that, because we have discussed on a previous stream that, you know, we're thinking about going complete independent owner operator. But I wanted to also get opinions between a lot of people that were in here that are company drivers, the struggles that they go through. We know Miss Jilly has gone through a lot of struggles, going through trucking and everything else. And, you know, this is why we're having that discussion today. Apparently we had to have a phone call today. So anyways, we're going to start out with like the owner operator side. Lone Star has been on a previous driving panel discussions before. And, you know, for a lot of people that, you know, unfortunately that play ATS, you know, they think when it comes to the trucking part that it's so easy to just get into trucking. It's not. Being an owner operator like I am and Lone Star is, we know the harsh realities of it. You basically got to take that dollar, you got to break it down for everything that goes into the truck, from, you know, maintenance, taxes to the truck, state, federal taxes, license plate. So every load that you haul, that dollar gets broken down. And especially now with the fuel prices going up with everything that's happening right now, it makes it a little bit harder. So, Lone Star, if you got something you want to definitely add in here, definitely start throwing it in there.
Yeah, that's basically what I tried to say. Is I think like over my years around trucking, like again, like Gary, when I got my CDL, it was very easy. It was basically a matter of it's basically a matter of taking a test, which the truck dealer at the time paid for it. And I said, I also got lucky at the time where the truck dealer goes, because you work for us, we will put you on the insurance. So I spent 2 years on his insurance as a driver before I ever really insured my first truck. So I got a lot better deal. But I think the number one thing that I see, especially today, is like I did a breakdown for a company in Toronto, one of his owners, and I went over what he made per driver, and it basically works out to be 20 to 25 cents a mile for the driver that he's making out the total truck by the time you took off your stuff like fuel costs, insurance, truck payments to the bank, and everything else down to the last dollar. So because of that, it turned around. That basically means it's a lot harder for new people or newer drivers to get in there. And also the training has changed a lot, where instead of spending a couple $100 to get a CDL, they're investing ten to $12,000. But like over my years of the trucks, I've seen everything from, ice roads in Alaska, ice roads in northern Canada, 49 US states, all of Canada. I've a lot of the loads I've hauled over the years are basically either up to them, or it was a lot of food refrigerated like Gary, or it was a lot of hurricane relief loads, or the COVID-19 pandemic. I hauled a lot of vaccines and stuff like that, and hospital supplies. So I've seen the world before and after all the changes. So then in turn, it basically meant, you know, that seeing it all, I tried, and that's like even playing ATS, being around their community. I see a lot of the people go in there and they're like, oh, I really want to be a trucker. I love the trucks. And I say to all of them, you have to do it for the love of the trucks and the love of the highway and the love of the lifestyle. than the money, because you'll have good years, you'll have bad years. I I I work on like Canada's largest collection of trucks that my friend's grandfather owns that I met like 10 years ago, and the amount of money that I spend rebuilding these trucks, especially the engines, it could be half a year's salary because somebody has a breakdown. And that's why always try to say that, it's a lifestyle. It's something to do for the love of the road. It's a great job, that a great career for that matter, that you can do very well for yourself, your families, but it's also something that you really have to do your research. And then like working from the dealership aspect of it, I've noticed like there's a lot of trucks, and this is what I try to tell people: you can buy for the looks, or there's trucks you can buy for fuel economy. And one of your biggest expenses as an owner operator or a company owner is the cost of fuel.
Yep.
So a lot of these guys will say, "I love the W900, I love the 389s, I love the 379s." I'm like, "Yeah, they're beautiful trucks, but they get a couple of miles a gallon less fuel." So it ends up cutting into your take home pay as a driver, as an owner, as whatever, because you've got all that added fees.
Right.
And then I see from the insurance aspect of it where, unfortunately people get sucked into, or people get punished because of the insurance industry's changes on trucking, where back 20 years ago it was easy to get insurance and the rates didn't go as sky high as they do now. So unfortunately, people like Miss Jilly and that try to get into it. A lot of the companies say, well, you got to have 2 or 3 years or sign up for in-house training programs before they'll take you.
Or
Uh,
even a lot of it might be nowadays. I think a lot of companies now are actually starting to go down to a 1 year uh, driving experience at least.
yeah, a lot of companies are too, because a lot of companies are realizing that there's a changeover in trucking that basically means that you've got to kind of have the door a little bit more open and pay a little bit higher fees in order to let them in, because we're at the age now where a lot of people that have been out here for 20 years and seen the changes don't have the love for trucking as we did when we started from the driver standpoint, but we have the love for trucking about everything else. And it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just basically when you really look at it, the profits and stuff like that were the same or better 10 years ago as they are today. And because of that, it makes stuff a lot harder, because freight rates and stuff like that have not gone up with the cost of fuel. And it's basically put a lot of owner operators out of business.
Yeah, because like when it comes to the freight, I mean, good majority of the freight, you're supposed to have a diesel fuel surcharge. And a lot of these brokers, they don't add that to because that's money going out of their pocket that they want to save in their pocket. So they don't normally, they'll give a price. It's like, oh, well, that's includes fuel surcharge. So you're saying like if a load is $1,000, and the fuel surcharge, let's say it's $5 a gallon. I don't even know if I got a sheet here. Yeah, I got one here yet. But if I'm looking at $5 a gallon right now, you're supposed to get a fuel surcharge of roughly 505 or 79 cents per mile. So, I mean, if that driver's not getting that, and being especially an owner operator, um, that's they're just basically paying the fuel out of their own pocket, because without that diesel fuel surcharge, a trucking company can't stand up. It just really can't.
Yeah, that's stuff like that. And it's like, and that's why, like, I've had certain owner operators ask me what to buy for trucks. And it's like, I also try to say, number one thing you got to do when you're looking for a new carrier, and that's as an owner operator or as a company driver, is you've got to do your research on the company and how their pay scale is set up. because one company that a good friend of mine ran for, he switched to the other one because the one company wasn't giving him the fuel surcharge. And it basically meant the difference where the fuel surcharge was covering his truck payments every single month and stuff like that, where it was making a lot higher profit that compared to the other company was giving him an extra 10 cents a mile or whatever when the percentage went up or down, and your price per pay was adjusted with the fuel surcharge. And that's what a lot of people don't see is you've got to look at the big picture and not look at today or tomorrow.
Right. So the one thing is we're going to jump back to Champ and Miss Jilly and Big Scoob. When you guys started out, what was the requirement for you guys to get into trucking? I know Miss Jilly, you're going through more of a struggle, but between you three, how many years of driving experience did you guys have first before you could get hired on?
Well, for me, it's a little different because I'm coming into it with 35 years of North American driving, not with a CDL, but I have, 35 years of driving in North America. And what the Canadian government has done is basically destroyed the transportation industry with what they've done with unfair immigration over the past 5 years. When COVID hit, everybody was at home and doing home renovation projects. So companies like Home Depot couldn't keep stuff on the shelves up here. So there was a massive driver shortage. So they opened up the doors for specifically for India immigration. And yes, they have a transportation industry there too, but the majority of their trucks are only 40 feet long. That's from nose to tail, 40 feet long. Not the trailer, but they're primarily straight trucks. So they would come over here, get their CDL. And in order to get citizenship in Canada, all you had to do was put a $250,000 investment into real estate. So one individual would come over here either with a CDL, with improper credentials, or they would come over as a student, not even go to school, get their CDL, invest $250,000, get permanent residency, and then bring over the rest of their family. They'd open up trucking companies. So when COVID hit, Toronto alone had over 500 trucking schools pop open.
How
Specifically,
convenient.
specifically to feed this industry. And like 2 years ago, Marketplace, which is the Canadian equivalent to 60 Minutes, did an expose on it. And what they were finding is you could get your CDL by going to a school and only paying $2,500. Well, in the province of Ontario, where I live, we've got the MELT program, which is the mandatory entry level training program. Now, the government mandates you have to spend 103.5 hours in order to get this certification before you can get your do your test to get your class one AZ license. Now, for me, I didn't spend no 2,500. I spent 12,000 from start to finish. I was trained by Challenger Motor Freight, which is one of the top they're one of the largest carriers in Canada, and they have their own training academy. Um they are no longer the company they used to be. They are controlled by another company called Fast Freight now. They don't have their finishing program. They used to be the number one hirer of new students. They would hire the majority of their students and put them in trucks. They don't do that anymore. In fact, they don't even hire company drivers anymore. They only hire owner operators.
Hmm.
And the majority of the owner operators, they're foreign nationals. There's somebody from Challenger that still keeps in touch with me now. They want me to get 1 year experience so that they can hire me to work for him at Challenger. He's not Canadian. He's got his residency, but he's not Canadian. He and his brother own 8 trucks. He
Hmm.
doesn't his wife, his children, they're all in another country. So all the money that those trucks are making isn't even staying in this country. It's leaving the country.
Yep,
Wasn't
that's
that
true.
something?
Yeah, that's true. And
Yeah,
that's the number one thing I seen because, like, in their countries, truck driving is totally different too, the way that it does. Like, I've done a lot of business with them. I've got a lot of friends from those countries that I try to help because there's some good people. But driving them is truck driving is look like a lazy man's office man's job.
yeah,
It's not made to look like the skill that say somebody like Gary streaming it every day or the other streamers that stream it is. It's basically a lazy man's job, and your job is to pick up freight at station A, drop it off at station B, and that's basically why you've seen stuff like, for example, the Florida truck catastrophe there, where the guy killed the family on the interstate. That guy had three accidents
Prior to that.
that were major before that. He had a accident in California. He drove the truck off a bridge in Ohio, and he also killed that family in Florida.
Yep.
And it's basically our government here in Canada has ruined the trucking industry, where where it's basically, and that's why I work for what I work for, which is mostly myself, because those guys, there's one or two of them that work for us, but those guys are proud to be Canadian, and they're at a totally different level than some of them, where they're like, well, okay, well, let me just get my family in a truck to make money,
yeah,
and that's why all these bad changes have taken place. And it's like what Miss Julie said. It's about $10,000 to $12,000 for somebody to become a driver. There was driving schools in Toronto where people are getting their license for $250 by basically having a ministry of an inspector was writing off the test for them for somebody put fee across the table,
yeah,
and that's basically what leads to some of these unsafe drivers on the road. And the U.S. is having the same kind of pandemic where there's training schools where people just put money across and
Yep.
basically, here you go, here's your CDL. Like,
yeah.
and,
They
and
don't. They don't even like what Marketplace was showing was Serco is the third party company that does the actual testing. There was a number of inspectors that were doing shady business. If trucking school Bananarama had drivers coming in for their test, that one inspector would say, "Oh, well, I'll take all those students,"
Right.
because they knew that they were going to get a $5,000 envelope
yeah,
and not even do a
yep,
drive test, and that individual would get a license.
that's correct. And also,
Meanwhile, they're not even qualified to drive a car, let alone a death machine.
no, because basically what the Canadian government basically said is basically that if you could prove 5 years for a license that you had it for a car, you could go to anywhere in the province you were in and turn around and apply for a truck license or any kind of license full the next day. And basically, what Serco did for Ontario, because Ontario is one of the companies which I kind of know like quite well and take care of, so I can kind of talk about that. They basically have a lot of third party inspectors where they basically give people permits. But also, the other scary part about it too is a lot of their inspectors have never driven truck a day in a life.
Exactly.
A lot of them hold a normal car license and are examining a truck driver. And the way we drive a truck, and I'm like people like Scooby, uh, and everybody else here, or Gary, after so many years in the truck, we shift the trucks differently. We
Yep.
operate the trucks differently. We don't, like a lot of us, we don't use the clutch for anything to take off because we've driven for so many years. And the manual trucks, the clutches were just to take off and reverse.
Yep.
Other than that, and stop. Other than that, you wouldn't use a clutch. Well, and we'd sit there and we do stuff like rest our hand on the gear shifter because we know we're going down the freeway, and some idiot's going to cut us off, or whatever, or we know that our next shift is coming. We're not going to go back on the steering wheel and then go back to the shifter because it's too much on your hand. Versus these guys were sitting there giving drivers with 20 plus years experience doing like their retests, marks on their license for just driving a truck normally.
The funny thing is, since you brought up about the shifting, I mean, now a good majority of these trucks nowadays are all automatic. Believe it or not, I miss the shifter. I'd rather, have rotator cuff surgery later on down in my life that, where I have to shift the truck to get it to go down the highway. But I mean, it's so easy with automatics to kind of spin the tires, ruin out a rear end. I've heard it all happen. It's like the automatic is just, kind of like downgraded trucks. And I don't know if Champ's got an automatic or if Big Scooby was in an automatic, but I know you, Lone Star, you still got a standard transmission and stuff. But I miss the regular manual transmissions than an automatic.
Yeah, but I also look at I also look at too. It's also the change of the industry, where a lot of the cars back 20 years ago were manual. Now they're automatic, and it's
Yep.
also now it's more about the driver getting from point A to point B than enjoying the driving experience. But
Well, what
it's but it's just unfortunate that these people don't understand it, and they've never been around trucking, so they've never seen it, the changes.
Well, the level of dishonesty that's in the transportation industry is absolutely shocking. When I went in to tour the facility at Challenger Motor Freight for their school, I said I specifically want to have an unrestricted license. I want to learn on manual.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that was signing me up and did the tour said, "Yep, no problem, no problem." They took my money. Then when I started school and I said, "Wait, I'm supposed to be in a manual truck, not automatic." "Oh, sorry, we don't have any."
Yep,
And believe it or not, with that limits you on a truck you can drive because it happened with Carmen.
Absolutely.
It happened
Yeah,
absolutely.
with Carmen.
absolutely.
Absolutely, and that's like one of the things where like I try to push for talking to the people in government in Canada, because I know a lot of like the people that are in charge of trucking. I try to say, every driver should be trained in a manual truck, as far as I'm concerned,
Yep.
and everybody should learn, and nobody should be restricted.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've literally seen guys come into um, job interviews for trucking, and he goes, "Do you have automatic? Do you?" And that actually happened to a viewer of the channel. I'm not going to call it out, but basically, I got at one time a couple years ago, there was an offer for one of my companies that I do stuff for. Said, "Well, we need new drivers," and the first thing the guy said was, "Hey, I can't drive a manual." So I'm like, "Well, sorry, I can't help you, because I look at it as that the manual is the ultimate control." Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, companies and truck manufacturers, because like I say, like I've been aligned with Navistar International Traction for more than 20 years. I've seen the growth of their lineup. I understand why they've gone automatic, because it's the fact that people don't learn how to drive them, and it's also the fact that a lot of the big companies that buy them challenge the fact that an automatic truck is more fuel efficient than a manual, because a lot of the drivers that don't pay attention to how they shift rev them up too high, and basically you're burning extra fuel.
Well, and the reality is the industry that's manufacturing trucks, there's a truck shortage, like manufacturing side of things. There's a truck shortage. But if somebody goes out to buy a truck now, a tractor trailer or the tractor part, they can get a tractor. They're going to have to wait for it, but they can get a tractor. But if they want one that's manual, it's going to cost them thousands more to have a
More.
manual
Yeah,
transmission,
Yep.
and they're going to have to wait an extra 6, 9, 12 months
And that's
for
yeah,
it to be
considered a
built.
manual transmission now as a special order
yeah,
compared to
That's
back
right.
then. Automatic used to be a special order.
That's
yeah.
right. That's
That's
right.
right.
So any of the companies that are running manual trucks now, they're old.
Right.
And like uh, we'll use California as the example because they're the special ones in California. Your
So,
trucks have to be no more than 5 years old or you can't
right.
cross the state lines.
Yep.
So
You can't come in
yep,
to so a manual truck isn't going to exist in California.
yeah, and also your trucks have to have an engine that's up to the California current emissions.
Yep.
So like say I've built a lot of glider trucks for different people. Where back in the day, like Kenworth used to sell glider kits and Peterbilt and Freightliner, and a lot of the guys that put the old power unit like the Caterpillar C15, you know,
I love that engine.
the Detroit 60. No, I love those engines. Like the Cummins N14. That's our beasts of our road. Like, and basically the collection that I rebuilt for the guy, 90, which is my friend's grandfather, 90% of those trucks have the Caterpillar C15 in them. They don't have the old engines. They've got the new engines because we basically built them to the point where I said if these trucks were to come off the assembly line in the prime of trucking, what are they going to have? So a lot of them had, the 625, 650 horsepower, 700 horsepower, the 6NZ cats because they're the beast.
Well, Champ, what are you driving for a truck? Is it a manual, automatic, big scoop? What did you drive?
I mostly drove manuals, but towards later on, the one company, they had started to went automatic, but it wasn't like today's automatic. So I mean, it was the first generation automatic. I hated the damn things.
Yeah.
So your pedal, you had like the 3 pedals, because like nowadays it's only 2 pedals on good majority of the trucks. The brake is connected to the clutch, and you pretty much got the fuel accelerator. That's about it. What the new generation is today.
Yep, I had the old one.
The 3
The old-
pedal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Champ,
Yeah,
what did you have?
Yeah, I started out on manual, but yeah, the company I'm with now are automatics.
Right.
Yeah.
About to get run over in them damn things trying to pull off from the stop sign.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think too, okay, like the number one reason why the manufacturers have changed over is because the difference is nowadays it's not an owner operator ordering a truck. It's a large fleet.
Right.
And if you look at numbers in Canada, US, the number of owner operators versus large fleet owners are much higher now. Where a guy's an owner operator, but he's an owner operator that owns 8 to 10 trucks, leased on to carrier ABC, than being an independent owner operator that he might have 2 trucks, one for him, one for his best friend, one for him for his brother, one for him for a significant other, and whatever. And that's kind of the thing that we get punished by as owner operators or even company drivers is you don't get the full trucking experience the way that it was.
Right. Well, the thing is, and many big Scooby and Champ will probably know this as well as Lone Star and Miss Jilly. But the trucking back then when I first started, I mean the CBs, I mean you can used to have a conversation with somebody all the time.
All the time.
If somebody was broke down, I mean somebody would stop and give you a hand. It's like, hey, what do you need? Do you need back then you really needed a hammer, vice grip, pliers, and a screwdriver. Mainly all you really needed for tools. Nowadays, with all these new emissions that are on the trucks, you can't even do half of that. I mean, we've only done a few things every so often with our truck that we could do. Or I'm sitting there, basically sending message to Lone Star, hey, how do I fix this? Because something's not working right here. So I mean, we've reached out to Lone Star to help fix our truck and everything else. It's just you just nowadays the trucking has changed so drastically. It's unreal.
And that's half the reason why it's harder to be an owner operator nowadays as well, though, because back 10 years ago, before the emissions, or maybe it's more, I'll be more than 10 years ago now, be like 15 years ago, before the emissions, the driver used to carry a toolbox on the road, and he would work on the truck, he'd maintain the truck, he would do everything for the truck to make sure that it went down the road. Now it's basically everything, and you get a fault code, and it's either you have to reach out to somebody that knows about your truck, the specific engine, make and model, or you're basically at your dealership paying out of your pocket, and that's half the reason why again the owner operators have dropped off because
Right.
there's so much more to owning a truck than going to the showroom and signing your paperwork.
Well, it's not so much that it's a mechanic anymore. They're computer engineers in that are fixing the trucks.
No,
Um,
that's correct.
over the winter, I worked a little bit for MCON. Now they do the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, the snow removal on the major highways. And let me tell you, every time I got into a truck, well, the truck I was hired to drive was a tow plow and for echelon driving. So it'd be multi-lane highway. I'd be driving the tractor and then I would use the joystick and I would kick out the trailer I was towing and that would go into the right lane with a plow down so I could plow 2 lanes of highway at the same time. The truck I was hired to drive was in the shop for 8 days from the day that I got hired. It finally and so I was trained on a different truck, a wide wing, which was fine. Then when the truck comes back, I take it out for its maiden voyage. I get about 40 kilometers away from the yard, it breaks down. Sensor error, sensor error, sensor error. So there are more problems with the electronics and computers on board a truck that you need to be a computer technician in
Pretty
order to fix a
much.
truck now.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Pretty much. And also, it got to the point too where a lot of manufacturers of different transmissions for the trucks will not even sell you a $5 part. They'll
Nope.
literally say, um, Eaton Fuller, Allison, Detroit, basically depending on your truck brand and how it was spec'd, basically say you you send me back your engine or your transmission, no, not your so much your engine, but your transmission. You sent me back this transmission in a box. I send you a brand new one. So a $5 part fails, it ends up costing you 20 grand.
All right.
Yep.
And it's basically I look at what I've got another laptop for stuff, and it's like this engine uses this software, this uses this uses that. Like it's so much not driver friendly, repair friendly. It's so much to spend money to go visit a dealer to make money, and that's why
Well,
it's unfortunate.
well, if everybody remembers last year, roughly around Memorial Day, when we finally took the truck in, because a lot of people heard it when it would downshift between the fifth and sixth gear, it would grind. And I was like, I got to that point because when the company sold me the truck, they basically said, "Oh, well, that's programming. It's just programming." Well, you would figure after having the truck running for like 8-9 hours, it should have been well programmed. That it should have not been doing that. But then when we took it in for that Memorial Day, and then we got a phone call back, and he's like, "Well, your transmission's junk. You're going to need a new transmission." Now, this was the endurance transmission, and it was just like, well, what the hell happened, And all of a sudden, it was like, ever since we put that transmission in, $17,000 later, it was like, when I was talking to the company, and I was like, "Yeah, you guys sold me a truck with a bad transmission," and they're like, "Oh, well, we wouldn't do that." And I was like, "Well, I told them the whole story about it," and it's like, no, the transmission don't even downshift like that. It drives like as smooth as possible. Well, I think that was a big hush hush, but when it came to the manuals and the automatics, I mean, you were looking at roughly, if as long as the transmission wasn't blowing up, a manual transmission, $10,000-$12,000. But now with these automatics, I mean, you're looking at now easily 17, 18, 19, $20,000 just for a transmission in these trucks.
Yep.
Yep, and that's why I try to say. But it's also unfortunate too because if you look at like stuff like the transmission failures of the automatic, you guarantee it wasn't taken care of right out of the door. But it's also a fact that you can't buy a $5 part that failed for it,
Mm-hmm.
pay a mechanic, pay a shop a couple $1,000s to change it. You're basically forced to the point where that that transmission is done is basically is and it's basically the amount's done because the guy takes it around the test drive around the block and says, "Hey, it's not shifting properly." Versus our manual transmissions, they'd be taken out of the trucks, I'd pull them apart on the bench, and I would say, well, hey, it's this part here. It's a clutch pack or something. I would change a clutch pack, put it back together. The driver would pay maybe two, three, $4,000, and he would drive the truck another couple 100,000 miles.
All right.
And it basically would just be a repeated process. Versus now, it's basically first sign of failure, you are paying for said replacement. You
So,
know,
like, Champ, have you ever had problems with a transmission on the road?
No, not with a transmission. No.
So yours pretty much, like for right now, you probably are still on the automatic yet, or have they still got you on the manual?
Yeah, no. I'm this company only has automatics.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. But I
yeah,
guess to say, have you had any codes that ever pop up every so often? Because like winters for us, we can have a wheel sensor that trips something off, and all of a sudden everything goes erratic in the truck. It'll say uh, cruise control disabled, then I'll have ABS lights that come on left and right that go flash on and off throughout the winter months. Have you ever had any of those issues when it like gets rainy out or anything?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have all those sensors and stuff. They'll go haywire from time to time, but nothing specifically with the transmission.
Okay.
yeah, because stuff like that all comes down to it's again, it's that you know they're so highly computer programmed where if the computer doesn't like something that it sees, it's going to trip a sensor.
Yep.
If you're in a climate like say like Canada, northern U.S. states, your your wiring harness, every component of that truck is exposed to de-icing residue or the effects of de-icing. So, like I've seen stuff like the states, for instance, from the northern states, like New York could be one, where literally 5 or 6 years, the whole salt decay from the roads basically decay everything in the metal, the sensors or wiring harness, and it causes so much more issue on the closed loop system.
Yeah, because the one thing that I think that because my brakes in the back, none of them got the covers on the back. So it's like probably what I'll have to do later on down the road is get the covers in the back there that covers that up to kind of protect them wires. But the last few winters that I went through, it's like it just threw everything all off, and then eventually when the truck sits, it redoes everything in there. I mean, I've talked for some of you that definitely know Yard know him. I definitely talked with him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's you got to usually find it when it's active, because otherwise, if it's not active, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack to figure out which one it is." But he's like, most times it's like you just replace them all because your speed limit is all controlled by those speed sensors. If you got one tire that's moving faster than the other, it'll throw it off. If your air inflation system is not right, that'll throw it off. And it's just like, man, when they put all this crap together in this truck, they don't really think about like, okay, what do you got to have? Like basically a mechanic driving the truck nowadays in order to get where you need to be going down the road without having to deal with all this headaches.
That's basically what I try to explain it from the trade mechanic standpoint of it, not from the driver standpoint, but because it's a closed loop system, there's all these things in the issue that all these issues in the system that could cause an issue, where it's like either you spend the extra and you replace that all at once, or you end up troubleshooting, replace this, replace this, replace this, replace that, and it ends up costing even more money down the road to fix because instead of having one visit to a mechanic or a dealership or a service provider, it turns into 5 or 10, and that's why you see trucks down longer because it's so much more troubleshooting than it's kind of unfortunate that it turned to that.
Yeah, and it just makes them more pocket money in the shop in the long run, more pocket money because they're like, well, they know how to put these sensors on, but it doesn't tell you exactly which wheel sensor it's coming from, and they're kind of left with them. Well, you might as well just replace them all. So if they're like let's say $200 a crack, well, they already made 2, 4, 6, 8, $800 for 4 sensors.
Yeah, and that's basically why, like, you've asked me about stuff, and I basically say, this could be your issue, but look at this, and this at the same time, because I look at the fact that, you're trying to feed your family with the truck, and you don't want to deal with the headaches, and you don't want people asking you a million questions on a live stream about, hey, what's going on today, or looking for you and say, well, why are you not here?
Right.
So it's like, okay, you might as well have ordered these other 5 sensors for the extra $500 and did them all at once yourself in your driveway, then get down the road and have to change it and pay somebody else's markup. And that's why it's key to have a good relationship as an owner operator with a parts supplier or a parts house or a dealership that is going to treat you right.
And that was one of the things, and I'll probably have to show this in the camera, but I mean, the one part, that we had to replace, we actually replaced it on stream. We did order them and stuff, but yeah, these things weren't cheap at all. But for some of you, this was the part that we ended up replacing. This goes into, I think it was like the exhaust side, and we ended up replacing this on stream. But we did buy it, and then replace it and everything else. And I mean, these were a little bit expensive little things. So yeah, they were a pain in the ass to fix because you got to have a specialty wrench to kind of get in the area. And eventually we got it replaced. It took us probably, I don't know, I think it ended up taking us like almost hour and a half, 2 hours
Yeah, I think
just
it
to
took
replace
you
that.
2 hours because I think it was something you asked me about, if I remember correct. And I was like, yeah, it's a common issue with the Cummins engine for that to fail because of where Cummins made a poor engineering decision with the exhaust gas pressure, temperature sensors, and all that. So I'm like, well, you might as well buy a couple extra and leave it in your truck because it's the fact that then you don't have to pay dealer markup as well,
Right.
because you're buying something from a supplier at $10. Dealership can easily cost somebody $100, $1,000 for a $10 part before you even take your downtime.
Right.
And that's why when I try to talk to people about becoming an owner operator, I try to say, there's more to it than just hauling the freight, and that's what
Right.
people don't understand.
Yeah.
So since we're getting on that topic, Champ, tell us when you break down how easy it is for you to call the company. I don't know how many breakdowns you've had lately, but for you, when it comes to a breakdown with the truck, how easy is it for you just to, as a company driver, to basically just call the shop?
How easy is it?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of just getting them on the phone and they'll get someone out to you. But it's not a fast process.
Yeah,
Like I
But
literally just sat
you,
on the side of the road the other day with a blowout for like 4 hours waiting on him to
yeah,
get there.
But the
yeah,
thing is, what I'm trying to get at is between an owner operator side, we've actually got to pay that bill, and you ain't got to
Right.
pay that bill. Is what I'm more or
Nah.
less getting at. How easy is it? Much more for you as a company driver, than being an owner operator. That there's less things off of your shoulders that you got to worry about.
Right. Yeah. I've kind of back whenever me and my daddy was in the logging side, I tried taking over the business side and doing it myself. I did it for a couple months and I gave it back to daddy. I was like, nah, I
yeah,
can't do this. I'm not. But this is some years ago. I was a lot younger and wasn't, uh, I guess it's ready or whatever you want to say. It's it's a lot easier for me, but you know, it's a lot more on the owner operator having to deal with that all themselves. You know, a lot of people
And
yeah,
don't
I
take all that into account when they want to own a truck. They think, oh, I just own a truck and I do everything myself. It's like, nah, you basically gotta live in that truck. You gotta breathe for that truck. Like that is your livelihood once you become an owner operator. I've known a lot of people that switched to it and tried to get their own shit and ended up coming back to the company because they couldn't cut it.
Yeah, I try to say that to a lot of people. The difference is being a company driver, you end up dealing with the headache of dealing with whatever services that your company uses for repairs or calling them or whatever, and the sitting down the side of the road like an idiot and dealing with it. But as an owner operator, you've got to have your complete network of basically reputable supply shops, reputable repair shops, reputable whatever tire supplier, everything from one side of the country to the other, from one side of America to the other, Canada to the other, whatever service, whatever area that you're going to service.
Right.
And that's why, as a company driver, it's just as stressful as an owner operator for stuff like breakdowns. But they're lucky that somebody in an office 90% of the time is going to take care of it, and you're just
Right.
sitting there waiting, wasting the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, no matter if we're company or driver, we still got to wait. It don't matter. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
that when it comes time to pay the bill, I mean, owner operators, that literally it's coming out of their bank account, and the company drivers, all they got to do is give them the company card, or if they've got an account, that's all. It's a lot
Yeah.
easier. But the waiting, everybody suffers waiting in
Right.
the
Yeah.
Yeah,
industry. It don't
yeah,
matter who it is.
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it don't matter who it is, but I'm saying that's why I try to say to people, if you're going to be an owner or operator, think about it twice, because again, it goes to be from more of trucking being a job to trucking being a lifestyle, because everything every single day revolves around trucking twice as more.
Yeah, you own
Be-
that truck. When you get home, you're working on that truck. When away from it, you're still thinking about it.
Yep.
When I clock out and get out of that truck, I ain't got to worry about it.
yeah,
Yep.
Well, and
actually,
there's another side that's going on up here. That we've got Driver Inc., which the government is finally recognizing as being a bad thing. And that's where a trucking company will force a driver. They are a company driver, but they're not recognized as a company driver. They want them to be a Driver Inc. So they don't own the equipment, but they have to pay all the taxes and all the
Right.
fuel and all the insurance. And then there's another business model up here where
I hope
and
they're
I'll
making more money.
no, they're not. They're not. They're getting
Nah.
screwed. They're
I
absolutely getting
wouldn't
screwed
be doing that.
because they've got no retirement, they've got no benefits, they've got no nothing. They got to pay all
Mm,
their own insurance and everything like that, and they don't even own the truck.
damn.
yeah, it's
So
basic.
then
Yeah,
there's another model up here where it's a lease to own,
Yeah,
and
we've got
I'll
that down here too.
and I'm going to throw this company right under the bus called Scotland.
well, I know them too well. They're scum.
They are. I know 3 drivers that they bought into the song and dance.
Yeah, I've
You
known
can
people do that too.
That's
get into this brand new truck, no money down,
Yeah,
no credit check, no this, no that, no nothing, but you're driving for us.
yeah,
So
oh,
you're making
yeah.
the payment and you're lucky, and they're the one that are giving you the loads.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're lucky if
And
you
they'll
get
starve you
enough
out of it.
work. Exactly. You're lucky
Exactly.
if you get enough money to make your truck payment, let alone be
Yeah.
able to eat.
I've
Yep.
known several
Yeah.
people go down that path. As a matter of fact, within the last couple of years, there was a guy that was working with me and tried to do the lease to purchase or lease to own, whatever you want to call it, and
Yep.
Yeah.
he ended up having to get out of it, and he's driving a dump truck now. So
I
Yep.
say lease purchase is one of the biggest scams in trucking,
yeah,
because it's basically, I try to say, if you're going to be an owner or operator, save up your down payment and do your bank financing,
right.
because at least at the end of the day you own the truck.
You own the truck. Yep.
You own the truck.
Yeah, because
And as far as our Driver Inc. part, that they're trying to do up here is basically like the U.S., where basically a lot of companies try to give company drivers 1099s
yep.
and basically say you're responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure you've seen that. The
Mhm.
champ, the
Yeah.
1099 for the company driver.
Yep.
I'm sure Gary's seen that. I'm sure Scooby's seen that. it's just basically the difference between our taxation.
They're trying to write you off on the taxes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically the difference between our two taxation systems. And I guess me understanding both Canada and the US a lot more than some people up here, I kind of see it. I kind of understand where somebody from Canada is talking about, and I can translate it to the US. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, uh, I guess it kind of helps with transparency.
Well,
Well,
here's one of the things, and since Lone Star brought up the taxation. Now, Lone Star, not only if he's hauling in the U.S. and Canada, he's on double the taxation. So, how does that affect you with your license plate?
It's basically it doesn't because it's basically Canada's basically into IFTA, so it all basically comes into the IFTA fees
Mm-hmm.
because we basically pay IFTA for the U.S. and then we basically pay Canada for the province that we're licensed in under the weight of the truck, and then the province gets paid under the IFTA because it's basically the international fuel taxation is basically Canada's basically has an agreement with the US that basically we are allowed one load into the US, one load out.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically means say, okay, I'll take a prime example of that. Okay, so say Gary works for company B out of Wisconsin, and he hauls beef or pork, and so say his company offers him a load to Toronto to say drop off pork at a distributor for a grocery store chain. Well, Gary's allowed to haul that load up here, and IFTA will cover it and stuff like that. And Gary's allowed to haul one load back, basically from any point in Canada to the U.S. And it's basically the same for us as Canadian owners or Canadian company drivers, where our companies are allowed one each way, and the tax covers it. But
it,
now, but
it
now,
can still be less than load, though.
yeah, it can still be less than load. Yeah, but I'm talking about one load, which basically means one thing across the border,
Yeah.
one truckload. So basically means okay, you can do half a load. Say I could haul a load of tires from Michelin factory in um, Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. I could take that down to the BMW factory in Greenville, South Carolina. I could haul back, stop by Greenville, Tennessee, pick up a load of John Deere mowers, put that in, go 200 miles or whatever, fill up the rest of the trailer with the load. As long as every part of LTL or less than truckload is going across the border, it's fine. But I couldn't drop something. I couldn't pick something up and drop it off again in the U.S.
Well, since you're speaking of that, Lone Star, because a lot of people have been asking me if I go into Canada. So when you pick up your load that's coming to the U.S. and you get to the border, what is it with the border people they require? So, like, because I know this happens when we go to Detroit every week. We've got people that are coming from Canada and they're picking a load up that's coming right out of the same facility that we dropped off at. What are the steps with the border patrol that when you get to the shipper or receiver, that they require? Because I know there's like a number or something that they require for you to come into the U.S.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to that, is there something that's called a fast card, which we have to cross the border, which is basically another piece of ID which people could get or use a passport. And then there's basically customs brokers that a lot of the different companies use. Like there's ones, the big one is Livingston, and basically means somebody's basically got to fax all your paperwork to a customs broker, and all your customs are done. So then the customs broker will basically send you an email back or give you a phone call with that paperwork to say, here's a number for the border. So that within the border guard, when you pull up to the Michigan crossing, I'll use that for an instance because that's what Gary delivers to a lot. They're the one in Detroit. or Blue Water Bridge is the other one in Port
Yep.
Huron.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, you basically have to sit there, give the broker's number to the border guard, and then the border guard will sit there, look in the computer, and say, "Hey, yeah, your load of they're trying to think of something that'll go across there daily. So they'll say, okay, your load of engines for the Ford plant in Detroit that came out of the Ford plant in the GTA is going through, and here's your customs paperwork on it. So it's basically a lot of back room and a lot of headache for the drivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know there was guys that were, like when we unloaded over at Border City, there was one guy there that could barely speak English, and they were asking for him his number, and he didn't know it. And so, believe it or not, he got ticked off because he was like, "Well, we can't take your load because we don't have a number for you." And apparently, he had to go back to the border, and go get a new one.
Yeah, because that's basically what it is. It's because it's the fact that if somebody tries to go through the borders before the stuff is completely finished, it'll basically say this doesn't exist, and a lot of guys get too excited to go through because they basically the change in trucking with the immigration where trucking is a lazy man's job. I get paid to pick up here, drop off here, and they want to do it as quick as possible instead of following the proper um, steps.
So, and a lot of this clearance is for specific purposes. It's not just to cause delays at the border. So, a lot of the this clearance is for drug trafficking and for human trafficking. So, for example, there's a lot of line haul that goes from Etobicoke, Toronto to Lansing, Michigan, and it's auto parts. Now, these particular loads, they've got the Fast Pass, which is free and secure trade. So these drivers and the company that they're working for have the CT and this is a higher level of registration and investigation so that not only is the shipper and the driver compliant, but they're on the lookout for these specific things. They have to do a specific 17-point check on their tractor trailer before they cross the border. So they've got to make sure that they're looking in all these little nooks and crannies on your truck to make sure that nobody's slipping in an extra package of drugs.
Right.
Because, it has happened. Somebody stuck something into a truck and they're in a car that's going to follow that truck until it stops at the next truck stop and the driver gets out to take care of his business and that person goes and
Yep.
retrieves whatever it is that they stuck underneath that truck. So there's a specific 17-point checkpoint series of checks that a driver has to do before they cross the border to make sure
Yep.
that some shady third person that they don't know, that's not affiliated with the company, that's not affiliated with the driver, is not using you as a mule for either drugs or for human trafficking. Now, a lot of loads that are going back and forth as well, particularly auto parts, they will put a tag on it so that the shipper puts a tag on it and the driver is not allowed to take that tag off. Now, going through the border, what's happening is the shipper is verifying this is on, the bill of lading and all of the paperwork is saying this is exactly what is in this truck. This is who I am. This is what our company is. This is where we can be found, whether it be, General Motors or Ford or whoever it may be. This is who we are. This is what's in this truck. And we're guaranteeing that's what's in this truck because I put this tag on it and I locked it. And it's got a
Yep.
serial number and everything. And the only people that are allowed to take that tag off of that truck to open up those doors is either border security or the final endpoint of where the delivery is.
Yeah,
And
because you're
and
talking.
if and
Yeah.
if that tag has been tampered with, like let's say you get, a particularly ornery border security person that says, you know what, I don't give a crap about all of this other stuff. I want to see what's in that truck. If they cut that tag off, there's a rigmarole that you've got to go through, and you have to
Yep.
put another tag back on it. You've got to register it. You've got to talk to dispatch. You got to let them know this is what's happened. I have the tag here. Officer so and so took it off. This is the tag I'm replacing it with. Here's the serial numbers for that. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the same thing that happens with a lot of the loads that we pull out.
Yeah.
If
Because it's
that door,
basically
if
because it's
that
basically
door is open, it's got to be a new tag put
yeah.
on by the
Yeah,
company.
because it's basically you guys, you probably see a lot of the plastic seals, right? How your seals
Yep.
are plastic.
Yep.
These ones here are an aircraft grade steel, and they're about a quarter inch around, and they're basically called a CPAP seal, which are basically a seal that basically you need a bolt cutter to cut it. And basically, I run into that a lot on the shipping containers for the container haulers.
Yep.
But say a lot of the loads I've hauled to the states recently went before they had a big fire was to Novellas, which was aluminum coming off of the trains in Quebec, going over the bridge to basically be melted down for the Ford Super Duty bodies. So so I was a fast certified driver. I have been for years. And even to get the certificate, I have to go to the U.S. Customs Office at a border city, have an appointment. They scan my retina, they scan your eyes, they do your fingerprint. You do a whole customs interview before you're approved. It's not just the one thing out the door. And
Right.
basically, as Miss Jilly said, those seals are put on by the shipper the same way that you are. When you pick up your meat, right? Like
Right.
you go to a pork plant, your trailer's sealed a lot of time by the border guard, where border guard will check and say, hey, or not a border guard, but like a security guard at your gate will say, hey, okay, Gary's picking up here. That Gary's got his pork, it looks right. Here's your trailer sealed. And basically, ours is the same way, where basically the shipper will either have a security or somebody from it will open up the door in front of you and say, well, here you go. Here's your load of Ford engines going to Lansing. Here's your load of aluminum going over to Novellas. Here's this, here's that. And they'll put the seal on. It's all recorded. And those seal numbers all go to the border, and as well as the shipper, where the customs guards and they're the U.S. security will see, hey, yeah, my number's 12345,
Right.
and he's got to check all that at the border. And if he gets ordinary and cuts it, it's basically all got to be recorded, and you've got to have it on all five because it can come back to you as a driver just as much as the company owner.
Right.
Yeah, and to get the fast pass, not only are you as a Canadian driver, you have to be interviewed and investigated by the RCMP and get clearance from them before you're even allowed to apply. So you make the application saying, "Hey, I want to get my free and secure trade pass so that I can do expedited loads that can go through this clearance." And they either yay it and nay it, and then you go in for an interview, and you have an interview on the Canadian side, and then once you've passed that, then you cross over and you go through another interview on the American side, and that's
Yep.
that's with Homeland Security. So you're being investigated by two governments, high levels of government.
Yep. And
You
that's the
know,
reason why when I go to the States, even for like shopping or whatever, or like the truck shows or whatever, it's why people go, how come you never have a problem with the border? It's like, because the border knows who I am. The,
yeah.
the, the, the border follows me every single day. And that's the reason why, I've had a run in with certain people around Twitch and stuff like that. They go, how come you're so transparent about who you are? I'm like, because it's all open source info.
Right.
If somebody wanted to find me, they could, because it's the fact that I'm in the U.S. system, just like I'm in the Canadian system of my address, my driver's license number, everything.
You
being a
know, and that
truck.
was, the one of the things, since we've been talking now, like a few years ago, because like I said, a lot of people ask me, why have I never gone into Canada? And, at the time when probably about, I'm going to say maybe 10 years ago, they started to move to the point where you need to have a passport to get into Canada. And when I was still, maybe 9 years, probably 9, 10 years. But I mean, at that point in time, I was working for a company, and they was like, well, you could go into Canada, you could make more money. And I was like, why would I want to go to Canada? I was like, and I asked them, I was like, well, tell me a good reason why I should go into Canada. And he's like, well, good money, but you'd still have to have more documentation with you. And I was like, well, then why would I want to go into Canada if I'm going to need more documentation to go into Canada when there's plenty of freight in the US here to ship? I was like, I don't want to go into Canada. I
No.
mean, would I want to, if I didn't have all the headaches with Border Patrol and all that? Yeah, sure. Why not? I get to see Canada. But with all the documentation nowadays and everything that,
Yeah,
cross
but guys do
border,
it.
it's not
Yeah.
worth it.
Guys do
That
it here because up here you're basically forced to be cross
80%.
border because 80% of our freight goes to the U.S.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's basically a lot of companies like say I can't go to the U.S. anymore because of my childhood cancer and type 1 diabetic.
Right.
We're basically I could go there, but it's a whole bunch of more headache. But
Yep.
a lot of companies will basically say, well, hey, you can't work for us because we only haul to the U.S. and back. And a lot of companies are set up here where you're paid to cross that border. Every time I crossed the border, when I did go through it, but I never redid it last year when I had to redo my medical stuff, I'd get $100 to go through the border. So I used to pick up um, in Quebec City the load of ingot going across to Novellis. All right, I get paid for the load. I get paid for the border crossing. I get paid for the drop off. They would reload my trailer over there with aluminum rolls to make house siding to go back to Kingston, Ontario. And basically, hopefully, I'm not getting too personal into it for the live stream, but basically they'd basically reload it, and they'd basically say, here, you're going back here with the loads of aluminum. They would unload it, and you'd go back to Quebec and take their aluminum over. So every single day, just for the border crossing fees, I'd be making $200 to $300 a day,
Right.
and that's why guys were doing it because guys would be like, well, hey, it's an easy to make $100 in an hour versus drive X amount of miles to make $100
And I
because
don't, and Champ, I don't think Champ or you, Big Scuba, have either one of you had to go, had the chance to go across into Canada, or did you guys not?
When I drove, I used to go to Canada every week. I worked the company I worked for in Fargo. They had partnership with Bison,
yeah,
so I could go back and forth. I know I could go up, drop a load off, pick a load off, come back. But the funny thing was, every time I come back to the U.S., I had to pay $12 to get back
yeah,
to get back into the U.S.
yeah, yeah, because there's border fees that sometimes the drivers have got to pay, sometimes the company's got to pay, and it's also too a lot of the Canadian companies have an agreement with the U.S. carriers to haul freight back and forth because it's being 80%, 80, I would say 75 to 80% American goods coming up, Canadian goods going down to service the infrastructures. And not to get into politics, but I think that was the number one thing why people were saying stuff like Trump was doing for tariffs and basically saying how tariffs were affecting the industry because the fact that the stuff is going across the border every single day. Millions and millions of loads, millions and millions of pounds of freight.
Right.
And it's the fact that our trucking industry here is so American based. Where if I were to walk into a carrier to be an owner operator and not or lease driver, I would get one rate. If I was willing to go to the U.S., I would get a lower rate if I just want to haul to Canada. So I'm not going to name any company names because of what we talked about, but I'll just say the same company that I did the loads across the border to upstate New York for from Quebec also had a run from Toronto, Ontario to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And if I ran that load versus an American load, I would lose about 25 cents a mile based on normal dry van freight or normal refrigerated freight. So people has a difficulty taking that because you add 1,000 miles to the job and you do the math and you see how much you lose.
Yeah, because I know. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of freight. At the time where, there's tons of freight. Like you said, it's going between Canada and back. I mean, it's I see it all the time. When I'm coming into Michigan there, and I can see the bridge, and I'm seeing trucks going over, and I see trucks coming across. It's just like, I'd hate to see the other ports, all along the U.S. or on the northern part of the new U.S. of how much freight is coming in, but just imagine how many trucks come in a day, within the first hour or the second hour, or out of a full 24-hour period of how much freight is just coming in and going back.
It's all day, every day.
Yep.
It's like what Ronald Reagan's son said. Or Robert Kennedy. There, his son is in power. He said Canada is our big brother.
Yep.
Canada takes care of the U.S. Canada is our friend. We don't fuck with Canada when all that tariff stuff went down.
Right.
The U.S. has a forest fire. U.S. has a hurricane. Just as much resources from Canada come down compared to the size of the country as your country provides. We are intermingled together. We are brothers. We are sisters. We are friend. And I wish more and more people would understand that than try to argue it.
Right.
Well, and it also comes down to manufacturing as well. We've got quite a lot of earth resources up here, but what we don't have is the processing ability to process those things.
Yep.
So we have truckload after truckload after truckload of a commodity being taken down to the States to have it processed
Yep.
and then
'Cause-
brought back home so that
Yep.
we can actually do something with it.
Yeah. Because
So, and that's what's being nailed with the tariffs.
Yep, and that's why I'm saying that it's hurting. That's why I said stuff like tariffs hurts the U.S. just as much as it hurts Canada.
Yeah.
Because okay, Kingston, Ontario, like Ontario's where I'm familiar with the most, so that's why I can make reference to that province. So that's why I try to use it because I know Miss Jilly's also from Ontario, so that it makes sense to somebody else on the panel. So, anyways, but Kingston, Ontario's got Novelis, or it's basically owned by Coke Inc. And Coke Inc. basically is Georgia Pacific Plywood and all that kind of things for the American side. Stainmaster Carpet and all that. It's the number one maker of nylon in the world for quality. So basically, a lot of that goes down to to the Carolinas, to Georgia, to a lot of the flooring manufacturers like Mohawk is one of the big ones in order to be made into carpet or made into laminate flooring, and then the loads of that flooring come back to Canada, done. It comes back to a warehouse in Toronto, and then from the warehouse in Toronto, it goes to the customers. Like we are very intermingled.
It's funny because like how much, okay, like I've hauled a load, that would be a line haul. I've hauled from one company that was a processor, haul it to another place where they got to finish it. And then eventually, if it's gonna goes from there to direct store for distribution, or it goes sits in a cold storage for how many months before they finally bring it to the store. it's just funny how much stuff that we haul. It's like, why don't they just haul it one way and get it done and over with, and then it just goes there? But it don't work that way. Not in the
No,
truck.
it don't work that way. Like there's parts for Ford Ford and the different automakers in the states that'll cross that border 7 times before the truck is finished. It'll cross through either the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia, through Lansing, Michigan, or Detroit. It's craziness. Like, how would you, when you really think about it, that
Right.
stuff happens?
Right.
And even as truckers, it's the same thing. It's like you look at it like, I'll say in reference to you, if and what you carry, if you're okay with it, meat,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
meat, your
Yeah.
your meat, your meat is
The meat,
brought.
the veggies, and all anything food related, pretty much.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just not trying to make reference at your company. I'm just
Right.
saying in general, right? The farmers will send the cow, the pig, from their farm to the processor in a
Yep.
cattle wet trailer. From the processor, it would go to a big warehouse. From the big warehouse, it'll go to the grocery store warehouse. From the grocery store warehouse, it'll go to the grocery store or the small independent grocery.
Well, and even more so, there's a lot of work that goes involved that is involved. You start with a cow, but the end result is beef pies. So
Yep,
the number of steps that that cow has to go through in order to become a pie, that's a lot of movement. That's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
A lot of
yep,
different processing. And it can't
yep.
all be done in one spot or two
No,
spots or three spots. It's
no,
multiple movements that that product has to go through.
no, no. But I basically use that as a reference point where the number one thing that's talked about on Gary's channel around the trucks, or people have talked to me that Gary's host about, is emissions. And basically, it's why the Trump administration is basically trying to step away from California and say, well, hey, farmers and truckers are essential, so let's dial it back on their emissions.
Yep.
Because the more of the emissions causers is the Boeing 737 that's flying a whole bunch of people, or the private jet that a celebrity is using, than a truck. And emissions is causing a lot of the failures,
Yep.
being too dialed up, causing the breakdowns, causing the losses. And a truck breaks down on the side of the road, a tractor breaks down in a field, that whatever that's hauling could have spoilage.
Yeah,
And you,
because pretty much nowadays, even like tractors on the road or farm tractors, I mean, a lot of them, even combines, all got the DEF on it now. And
yeah,
all of a sudden, the last we heard, we've been waiting for a cutback in emissions for a long time. Apparently, like when it comes to a code on a truck, I've had this code happen to me already. It said, well, it gives me 2 hours before the truck derates, and but to find a place to have the truck fixed.
yeah,
Well, regulations were supposed to be turned back to make that where if it's not a complete emergency emission, you can go like if you need to get 8 hours back to a shop, you can get 8 hours back to a shop. But I have not seen or heard anything more since then. But I haven't really been really
I
following that up left and right.
I haven't been followed that up left and
Well,
right. It's just people have asked me a lot about it, and that's why I try to say it's important.
and something else that I don't fully, I'm not going to claim that I know all of it because I don't. But something that I do believe that Trump is trying to push for is data. He wants true, hard, scientific data that DEF is required. Where are the environmental benefits from this? If it's so required and it's supposed to, improve emissions and blah blah blah, give me the scientific proof. And
Right.
they're not able to provide that. And for how many years has DEF been mandatory?
Years, but I'll take this into Canada, so our side of the border. Okay, the number one argument that's going on about truck manufacturers is that if Euro spec emissions don't use DEF and they use other stuff that instead of it, and they run cleaner, and they've been mandated as cleaner, then how come Euro spec is not accepted as as a acceptable engine in our countries?
Yeah, because I if I remember correctly, who was it? The one from YouTube there, he brought in a Scania from another country,
Bruce
and
Wilson.
I
Bruce
don't even
Wilson.
think he even runs DEF on that.
No, that's what I'm saying. The Scania uses a Euro spec, and their Euro spec goes back to what International started with, and Caterpillar, which was basically ACERT, which is basically fuel cleaning. A fuel or a solvent was used for cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like diesel fuel instead of DEF.
Right.
DEF is not needed. There is alternatives, and that's what Trump is kind of trying to challenge and say, well, hey, um, the changes that I make, where's the research to say that these other sources of emissions are not as good as DEF?
Right.
And the one thing about the Trump, and like I'm not trying to take this into politics or anything,
Well,
but
politics comes out of it no matter how you look at
yeah,
it. So,
oh yeah, yeah. But that's basically trying to do is he's trying to get the research and the numbers to try to prove to people, hey, these are valuable alternatives. And the one thing that Miss Jilly, myself, in Canada, we are mostly affected by America and the American policy changes directly basically get shadowed up here
yep.
because Canada's all of Canada, especially the trucking industry, is all about being 49 state compliant. It's basic because the reason why I call it 49 state is because who's ever going to drive a truck to Hawaii unless you take it on a bridge
Right. Or you got one heck
or
of
a
a
ship?
good paddles.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the number one thing that is kind of put back, where to realize how interconnected our countries are.
So I'm gonna shift this with Champ, and I don't know if Big Scooby has or not, but have either of you had problems with your DEF systems on any of the trucks that you've driven?
Yeah, I'd say that's a big problem in our trucks. That's one of the main things we usually have issues with is the damn DEF systems. I hate that shit.
And other than that, I mean, it's like, how full do you always keep your tanks? Because I mean, like for me, what I notice every time that I fill up, doesn't matter if it's one tank or fill up both tanks. I mean, I fill up that DEF fluid. I pretty much mine barely ever sees below half. So I don't
Yeah,
know if you stay in a consistent rhythm with it or what you do with it.
yeah, I keep it pretty full. Like if it gets around half, I'm filling it up. But it's just, I don't know. It just seems to always be a constant problem with these trucks. And I think mine don't seem to be too bad, but I notice a lot of other trucks that we use has it. But generally, if I'm parked, I idle my truck up. I don't let it just sit at a low idle for a long period of time.
Right.
And I don't know if that helps it or not, but that's what I do. And I
Yeah,
don't seem to have many issues, but I noticed a lot of other drivers that
yeah,
work for my company, they have a lot of issues, and I wonder if that's what it is.
yeah. That helps big time. It's like uh, I'll say it more from the mechanic standpoint than that is because those depth systems are meant to be at engine operating temperature. So a guy letting a truck run at idle for 10 hours because he's sleeping, it basically the truck's not in the operating temperature, and it basically ends up clogging stuff up because the cleaning solvents and that's not used properly.
Right.
Well, the one thing that I notice if I do idle the truck, and let's say maybe it's like a half hour. I mean, we've done it last week because something wasn't working right, and the next thing you know, I'm looking down at the temperature gauge, and that thing's over 200. Where the summer months, I don't see it as like that, but it seems like every time when it hits the winter months, it all of a sudden that temperature go up to 200, 205, and it never. And I still haven't figured out why, if it's because of the seasonal weather that all of a sudden it wants to decide to run up to 200, or if all of a sudden the thermostat's got a mind of its own and says, nope, I'm too cold, I'm going to stay where it's warm. So, that's one thing I'm still trying to figure out with that.
And as far as that goes, yeah, it's a bit of both because, but it's also a bit of the engine manufacturers too. You use ambient air temperatures in order to try to work on emissions and stuff, and it basically they want the trucks to run higher in the winter because basically we all know when it comes to steel and stuff like that, it gets brittle the colder it gets, and it also gets a shock to the system going from being 200 degrees to minus 20. So they want to keep the stuff warm to try to protect it.
Well, we definitely know if we don't leave the truck somewhat kind of warm during the winter months. We've had it where all of a sudden we come in, we pop open the hood, next thing you know, we notice we're like a gallon shy, and then there's like a big old puddle underneath the truck because the material contracts and expands and all that stuff, and it seems like it contracts when it sits in cold. That's why I was sending you a message. It's like, is there an aftermarket thing that I can find to prevent all this?
Yeah, that's basically what I said. It's basically what you're finding is basically I think it's the EGR coolers and the coolant passages and stuff like that, where they basically have it set up that the rubbers and stuff like that are used in them don't like the expansion and contraction with heat because the heat kind of expands the stuff and thickens it up, and then it basically swells and causes a leak. And there's stuff that people have done because of it, but it's also just as much of a Cummings problem for not having a better quality material and a bigger overflow tank so that people can let the stuff expand. And that's one thing I've talked to Cummings about personally. But talking to these engineers, they know better than a lot of us that have years of experience.
Right. Yeah, because I know when I pop open the hood on mine, every time I look at it, it's like, why the hell didn't they make a bigger reservoir tank? Because it's like all of a sudden, like when it's running, then all of a sudden I pop open the hood, it's like the thing is about ready, almost like a half inch of out from the top of the opening, and it's just like it's about ready to blow out, or flow somewheres, and it's just like, why didn't they have another place? But I usually know there's some people that'll put an exterior tank on, so that they don't have to sit there and worry about it. They'll run the hose all the way from the reservoir tank all the way to the back, and then they'll have it mounted on the back of the cab, and they'll have it a little bit higher, 2 feet higher than the existing one. So in case if it does need to, blow off something, it can flow in there for an extra flow. But then all of a sudden, if it gets too low, it'll siphon that right down into the tank. But I don't know. It just seems like the way some of these programming on these trucks nowadays, it's just, it affects the emissions one way, and then it affects the emissions the other way, and then it just affects the truck overall.
Yep. Yeah. That's basically what it is. And I think that's our number one challenge is the changing of the equipment. That's also why I say to a lot of people it's better to be company drivers than owner operators. But now companies want the owner operators because it's less of a hassle. And that's why like what Champ was saying earlier about lease purchases or you know, uh, they're basically a scam for basically people that have no money down or have uh, poor credit. Not to be judgmental to own trucks because the company doesn't have to be responsible no more for the driver, just filling it with whatever loads that they want because they know the driver's got to take it to make his profit.
Right. And with some of that, it might be loads, believe it or not, that might be something like the company don't want to haul because all of a sudden they know there's let's say, well, there's whole loads that we haul that go to Detroit area, that all of a sudden you get there, you got a 6 o'clock appointment in the morning, and you're not leaving out of there till 6 p.m. So it's like it might be loads that that they want to give the owner operator that might be a hassle to the company.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of it is
Walmart
like
does
that.
that crap all the time.
Yep, a lot of it does that because they know that an owner operator, especially one that's struggling to make ends meet, has to take those loads, or otherwise he doesn't have a paycheck.
Well, Walmart now is using 60-foot trailers, and they're not paying
Yeah.
the driver a penny more.
Yep.
Instead of pulling 53, they're pulling 53-foot trailer. They're pulling a 60-foot trailer and not getting a dime more for it. It's
You mean to
using more
tell me they
fuel.
got the 60-foot in Canada now?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
We
because
haven't
that's
seen them here
Walmart.
yet.
this
That's Walmart.
because the Walmart in the States is going for it too. But the 60-foot trailer was designed for Firma. It was designed for or I'll say Firma, but it was designed for national disaster. So basically meant, if you got a hurricane or you got a forest fire, that would go to a warehouse and get loaded in order to get the amount of freight to haul the situation faster. Because and then us as the truck driver would get stuff like exemptions of hours of service or the ELD to say, well, hey, you can run. Here's a tag for your truck. You can run 80 miles an hour down to the Carolinas or Florida to help them because they got a hurricane. And if that took you 20 hours to do, because you're leaving Wisconsin, go for it.
Well, same as like if you're
Yeah,
hauling livestock.
yeah.
You,
That's basically the same. Or like, hey, well, I got it for COVID vaccines. I would get from Esta in Toronto COVID vaccine going down to the Women's Hospital in Halifax and the Children's Hospital, where I could run that 15-hour trip, 16-hour trip at like 120 kilometers an hour all the way down there and go to sleep, get a load going back up to Toronto for their hospitals.
And
It's
the
basically
one thing about COVID, and it's like, so getting back to the lazy man job, if the lazy man's job being a truck driver was so easy nowadays, I mean, if we were running under COVID days again, I think there would be more safety on the highways than what there is now when you got cars on the highway. Because like I said, like last week, I mean, somebody couldn't damn near cut me off. I could have literally clipped them and thrown them in the ditch. But I mean, during COVID, oh heck, I mean, it was like you felt like an outlaw being out on the highway when there's nobody there. Nobody. And then you see a cop and all of a sudden you're running down with a semi, and it's all of a sudden like you just feel like you're violating the law. But I mean, the safety purpose during COVID was so much easier, way much
that's
easier than
all.
what it is
Yeah,
now.
that's all I'm saying by it. It was, is that I would see, I would go to Quebec and I would see the QPP or Ontario. I would see the OPP or Nova Scotia, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. I'd see RCMP. You'd pull into their stations where they're doing your border checks, and they would say the guy would see the sticker. You'd roll down the window for 2 seconds. The guy said, "You seen your sticker?" The guy goes, You're running vaccine, or you're running hand sanitizer, or you're running medical something." Yep. Let's see your paperwork. See you later. Have a good day.
Right.
Or you get pulled over for speeding. You'd hand the guy your bill of lading. He would say, "Hey, you're hauling that? Yeah. Be safe." And he'd be safe, and he'll go and let the next speed trap know. But I think that is unfortunate. What I think is unfortunate that the stuff that was for emergency purposes or to help the people is now being used like corporations like Walmart and others things. Like, why should Walmart be allowed to use the same trailer that's used for national disaster relief?
Right.
What makes Walmart so special?
Right. Well, just having that 7 extra feet on there. I mean, We've been, here in the U.S. I mean, we've been hearing about the 60-foot trailer for, I don't know, it's probably been going on 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. They haven't done nothing about it for the most part. I mean, I don't know. Do we really want to haul a 60-foot trailer? Not really. I mean, look at some of the places that I go to. That I got a double back in, to just get in the dock, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now I'm going to have 7 more feet sticking out if they want to go to a 60-foot trailer.
Well, that's why I say, and it's also stuff like the European trucks coming over. It's like, and that's why some of these emissions challenge are, because the European trucks or the cab over. Why did you have them back in the day? Okay, you had the cab over because of the length law,
Yep,
but you also had the cab over because of the highway systems were not major 4 lane. The trucks were going more through cities.
yep,
Well, and the roadways are much narrower in Europe than they are over here.
Yeah, but America was like that too.
yep,
When America 20 years ago, before the ICE system really booted off 30 years ago, it was a lot of single lane visits. And if you look at stuff like say Route 66, that's now been swallowed up by mostly the I-40. That
yep.
used to be a lot of 1 lane towns that you used to go through, and a trucker used to stop in that 1 lane town to get his fuel, to get his food, to get his sleep, and continue.
And avoid the weight scales.
Yeah, and avoid the weigh scales. So the thing about it is that those European trucks do have their place in Canada or the U.S. for people like Gary that are delivering to rural America, and also to the urban structure cities like Detroit, where you could wait 20 minutes for enough space to back up.
And the other thing is, if they're going to start requiring 60-foot trailers here in the U.S., I think I'm going to have to require a cabbie to take that trip.
Well, it's going to be the driver that pays the price, because the shipper, the guy on the dock that's loading those extra pallets, he's getting paid by the hour. So he's getting paid the extra
Yep,
for filling that truck, right? The broker, they're getting paid that extra. Why is none of that being trickled down to the driver?
right,
Right? So that's your thing. But plus your other half of it too is that when these trailers that are looked at as a specialty, are they going to be a special? Are they going to be looked at as a special trailer anymore when you've got mega carriers running them?
right,
You know, and of course these mega carriers want them because it's the fact that the every extra 7 foot works out to be that every truck that you send, every 7 trucks, 8 trucks makes up for a whole truck's loads of goods.
right.
There's so much more behind it.
They
But
won't be
now
allowed in California.
They won't
the
be
only
allowed in
other thing
California.
is,
No, you
the
bring
only
a
other thing
53.
is now, okay, since that you got that extra 7 feet, what are they going to take the weight gross up onto? Is it going to be up to 90,000, or is it going to be like
Yeah.
86,000, or what's the DOT going to put on that
Yeah.
restriction?
Well, you already know. You already know what's going to happen. Is that there's already a permitting process where companies can apply for their units to haul more than the 80,000. So okay, like the one guy I know like in upstate New York, he runs a trucking company that hauls sand and gravel. So his basically trucks are stock set up, basically to haul the 80,000, but his trucks are allowed to haul 90 because he's applied for the permitting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what's going to come down to it is your mega carriers are going to say, hey, we can't haul 80 no more without the drivers being fined. So here, let's get 90. Or
Right,
the thing's going to say, well, under these said trailers, because they're a 3 axle trailer, they're going to say, well, hey, because you got an extra axle there, you're allowed this.
right,
Because you look at DOT's already said, okay, if you run an APU, you're allowed 500 pounds to make up for that APU.
Now then it makes you wonder, like now, like with like Michigan. I mean, Michigan runs 160,000 pounds gross as
Yep.
long as they got the axles,
Canada's the same way. Ontario runs 160 as long as you got the axle.
right?
As long as you got the axles, I can run a double 53 through Ontario fully loaded,
Mm-hmm.
253s. I can run 160,000 on a flatbed as long as I've got my four axles.
Right,
It's it's, it's just all it is just states like Michigan. You look at the roads
right.
quality in Michigan versus the road quality in Wisconsin. You can see the grooves on the road.
Yeah, yeah.
You
We've been on highways where all of a sudden, you know, it's literally grooved, and it's just like either they did some poor engineering on the road, or there was a ton load of weight on it.
drive through Ontario, drive down the 401, the 400 series highways. You see the groove. There's a groove in them from all those trucks hauling the doubles.
Right,
That's basically what it is. And but but the government will take it because if I'm paying because I got to pay if I got to pay double the price to haul 160 over 80 on my plate every year, hey, that's more money.
right,
Unfortunately, money talks.
right. Well, if it's based solely on weight, like let's say gravel and all that other stuff, then yeah. I mean, if you can get another couple extra tons, you know, on the load and you've got the axles for it, great, you can do that. But when somebody comes in with like a dump box that's only got really two axles on it, I mean, it's probably like uh maybe like barely a half a load. It's not, the money is not going to be good for him compared to a guy that's actually hauling something with 8 axles with a dump on it.
No, but unfortunately, that's basically what it came down to. It where people are going. There's a guy with two axles going to load 80 and his trailer splitting, and it's a safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
But it's safety issue versus money and profits.
Now that's something that my roommate is coming into issues with over the past couple of months. Now he works for Herb Transport, so he's hauling a reefer.
Yeah,
Um,
I know them quite well as well.
and he's mainly doing the eastern seaboard, and he's going to a shipper getting his trailer filled up. He's going through the scale, and he's, anywhere between 4, 5, 6, 800 pounds overweight
Hmm.
Yep, yep.
consistently.
Consistently,
Consistently. And it's
consistently,
and he's, he's talking to dispatch and saying, what the hell, what
consistently,
the hell, you know
consistently. Because
yeah.
what the hell happens is that the shippers do not check what
Right.
they're putting on the trucks. The
No.
shippers will just load the trucks up and until you're at the last place where you can put a strap in the trailer. So basically means if you haul a load of lobster and you haul a load of beef, they've got two different total weight per skid. But the guy will max out the skids and say, "Well, hey, you're hauling beef, or now you're hauling lobster." So 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 instead of the companies saying, "Well, hey, here's $25 for the scale, go scale your truck instantly." The guys are driving down the freeway, and at that point, it's too late, and the
Right.
driver's dealing with the overweight ticket.
Well, here's one of the things that I noticed big time that has changed over the years is before they even loaded the product onto the trailer, they would weigh the product before they put it on the trailer so they exactly knew how much weight was there. Now I think most times it's just mainly a guesstimate, or they weigh it, but they don't figure, you know, might be on the bill of ladings, but I mean, certain
Now,
trucks weigh differently. I mean, Volvo's at just the tractor alone is about 21,000. Maybe it's gone up to 21,600 pounds.
yeah, but
Um,
Well,
here's all the thing about companies like uh, some of the companies that haul the reefer. They've got a variety of trucks too. Some of them have the W900s that weigh more.
yep,
yep.
Some of them have the international Pro Stars that weigh less.
yep,
Some of them have the the Western Star is at way more.
Right.
Like the difference between the load that you can haul with a W900 than you can haul with the Lone Star is about 5 to 7,000 pounds on that load.
Right.
And the 5 to 7,000 pounds on that load can be a difference between my load is road legal, my road is not. So I've seen a guy pick up a load out of a dock for with the Peterbilt 389 or W9, and the guy's got to run the truck a half a tank of fuel in order to be legal on the road.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, you don't want to be doing that if you're going across Canada because you might be,
No,
you know,
no,
you could
no.
have run out before you get to a new fueling station.
I've hauled across Canada for years, but that's your whole thing. But your other problem is too, is that the shippers and the companies don't tell the driver, well, hey, this load's a little bit heavy, so make sure you only fill your truck up to 3/4. So the poor guy fills up his truck all the way, and then he ends up getting a ticket at the scale house. And you
Yep.
put out a
Or
service.
basically hauling beer. I mean, I've had that where they
Yeah,
say you're hauling beer, and the next thing you know, it's like, well, you can only fill the truck up only half the tank. I'm like, screw that. It's like I'm
yep,
gonna fill up the dang tank right away, so you put less on.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yeah. But that's like a prime example, and that's why I've said to a lot of guys, where the companies have scales, and some of them have scales built in the dock for the overall weight. I tell them, you know, fill up your truck fully. Make sure everything is full. Make
Right.
make 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 sure your fridge is full of beer. Well, not beer, but you know what I'm saying. Make
Yep.
make make sure you got
The
everything.
other, the other beer.
Water.
Yeah, yeah, but
Cases of water.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I try to be funny. But I try to say, make sure you've got everything you need in that truck, and that truck is ready to rip when you pull out. So
Right.
so so that way, then when I'm going across the scale and I'm 35,000 pounds, well, the guy can only put 45,000 pounds in there, and I'm good. Because otherwise, if I'm sitting there and I'm in a W9 and I'm got half a tank of fuel, and my truck weighs 35. Well, by the time I go fuel, I'm over. Or I'm in a light truck. I've seen a guy put 50,000 pounds a lobster in the back of a truck because he's got half a tank of fuel. So I go fill and I'm over because the shippers don't understand the difference between driving a Lone Star and driving a W9. They don't understand the difference between hauling a Great Dane trailer and hauling a generic reefer.
Utility or any of those other reefer units out there.
And every single combo's got its own tar weight. That's max filled up and whatever, because you have a truck with 300-gallon tanks. The weight on that truck is different than a truck with 250-gallon tanks. And that's why I just find it interesting, because then nowadays it's not even the shippers themselves are not even really work for the company. A lot of times it's a lumper service.
Right.
And a lot of times you go into a door and you're said, hey, Capstone Logistics is loading you, or one of them. Here's a com check for them.
Right.
Write them a com check for $1,000 to load up my load of lobster, or my
Right.
load of beef, or my load of Campbell soup, or whatever it is. So that's the thing about it. So a guy is basically sitting there and he's guessing on what you're hauling for a truck, hauling for a trailer, the weight of the load, because instead of a guy sitting there and weighing out every single pallet or every single skid that he puts on that pallet, he just grabs 5 pallets, and the shipper just says, "Hey, this pallet of beef has a 500-pound average." So he's just going 500 pounds, 500 pounds. Well, what happens if the shipper got a little bit happy at the processing plant and he put 11 pounds in every single tube of beef instead of 10?
Right.
So then it's 50. So in the 50 tubes that's in there, all of a sudden your scale has jumped from 550 to 550 from 500,
Right.
and that adds up over 50 feet, 53 feet, whatever.
Well,
But
the
they're
other
paid.
thing,
They're
because
paid by
the
the
other thing I
hour,
wanted
so
to
they don't
ask,
care.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're paid by the hour.
They're
They don't
paid by the
care.
hour, so they don't care. They're
No,
getting their paycheck,
they don't
and
care.
they're not the one on the hook.
No, it's about doing the least amount of work for the most amount of pay.
Yep.
so the other question was is that Lone Star brought up, and I guess I'll ask this one to Champ. Is there anything that you've delivered that require a lumper? I mean, granted, I get lumper stuff all the time. Some of it it goes under a relay code or something or another, is if it's provided by the plant. But just wondering, have you had anything that where you delivered that required you to have a lumper fee?
No, I'm in the LTL side, man. I'm all drop and hook pretty much. I go terminal to terminal. I don't deal with loading and unloading.
Oh, so you just do line hauls, basically.
Right. Yeah, I'm on the line haul side.
Sometimes I think that's what I should just do, is go into something that just does line hauls, and I don't have to deal with constant, shippers and receivers, but just go into the terminal there, drop it off. See it, say, hello, Frank, how you doing? See ya. Have a nice day. We'll see you tomorrow, or whatever else,
Yeah.
and then just deal with the idiots driving back, trying to get back to the other one safely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that might be worth considering for you, Gary. Do it expedited as team, and then get Carmen to be able to drive with you.
Yep.
Well, that's basically why I was trying to say that. Basically, that's basically why I was trying to answer your question. Like I remember, like you had about asking your own DOT and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, it's worth it, if you and Carmen want to drive together, because I know Carmen's kind of in the same boat as Miss Jilly, where
Yeah.
Yep.
where unfortunately these damn unless the companies are self-insured, there's a limited amount of companies that are going to hire you to start out,
Yep.
and or companies will say, well, hey, like I know a few people at Challenger, like one of the girls I know used to work for them for years as a distributor, because she's from Cambridge, and a lot of the people used to go to work for them because they knew, well, hey, I had a job out the door, so I'll pay for the training in order to get my 2 years experience.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I say, like, when the people come to Gary's chat asking about driving a truck, I'm like, well, hey, you got to realize, some guy goes, well, should I go to a company, or I should go to or should I just go to a school and pay the money? Well, I'm like, they both got the benefit. So somebody like, say, just trucking, Justin, he's always like, well, hey, the South Carolina uh, lottery helped me whatever I paid $2,000, and that's how I started out in the industry. Well, I'm like, you're also lucky that your wife's dad was a flooring distributor, where he would give you a job right out of CDL school, and you could turn around and drive for him for a year before an insurance company would touch you at a reasonable rate.
Right.
Well, unlike the school that I went to is a TTSAO school, which is a Truck Training School Association of Ontario. So they worked with the government and have an association and a membership of carriers and insurance companies. So even with me having zero experience, there are 11 insurance companies that will hire me just because of the education that I have. However, carriers out there are oblivious to it. They're not talking to their underwriter and saying this is the education they have. They're just remembering those 500 pop-up schools in Toronto where the buy-offs were taking place, and people getting their licenses without actually having a proper education. So that's kind of where I'm stuck at right now. I haven't dated
Yeah, and it's also
since my husband
yeah,
passed away, and I'm
yeah,
contemplating, geez, maybe I should find a trucker boyfriend and drive team with him, cuz
yeah,
at the rate that I'm going, I'm not going to be able to do long haul. I will have wasted thousands and thousands of dollars for an education that I can't use.
yeah. Because there's the thing about it is, but it's also too that you've got recruiters at the companies and stuff like that, where they're not really educated either, and say, well, hey, so and so's this, because the insurance underwriters still say, well, hey, if I went to a appropriate school that's got the thing to hire a driver that counts as years of experience, I'm still going to pay a surcharge for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here's what's happening is the number of carriers that are registered with that TTSAO. Herb is one of them.
Yep.
Now, I've been referred by my roommate to Herb. The head office is in New Hamburg, which is really close to me.
Yep.
Baden office is also really close to me. I've applied at 4 of their different locations with the willingness to relocate, even up into, God's country way up north.
Yep.
And they have a training program. The thing is they're not utilizing it.
No,
The
a lot of
the
them don't.
Baden office alone, the Baden yard alone has 11 trucks parked. They don't have
Yep.
drivers for it. Well,
Yep.
why the hell are you not using the program that you claim to have to train drivers to drive those trucks? They're just choosing not to do it. I applied for another company out of Puslinch, which is not far from here, and it would qualify for just being on the fringe of the GTA area. And they're foreign owned. And I told them about, the TTSAO school, and I asked directly, what insurance company are you looking at? Because, like, it's a matter of public record. I can Google it and find out exactly who their insurance company is.
Yep.
And they said, well, it's Fenchurch. And I said, well, I do believe that my education qualifies me to be insured by your company. He goes, well, I don't know. He says, you call them. So I actually, but I have, my background is in business and finance and marketing,
Yeah.
so that's my wheelhouse. I got no problem talking to an underwriter at an insurance company. So I did. I actually got to talk to the underwriter at Fenchurch in downtown Toronto. We were on the phone for half an hour, and I had told him who I was calling on behalf of, and he made the assumption that I worked for him. And I said, no, I never told you that I worked for them. I said, I'm calling on their behalf. This is the information. This is the driver's information, and blah, 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 blah. So we go all the way down the road, and he says, yeah, we'll insure that driver. I said, perfect. I said, that means I'll get hired. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm the driver. And he's like, well, why is the carrier not calling? And I said, you have worked in the transportation industry long enough to know that if they can get somebody else to do the groundwork for them, they will. And hello, that's exactly why I'm the one that's talking to you and not them.
Exactly. And there's also stuff too like like there's the Women's Federation of Drivers for Canada.
Women's Trucking Federation. I'm a member of that too.
And they're like, well, we'll help you,
No,
but
they don't.
but they don't, because they're like, we're so oblivious to the thing, and it basically takes you to look at their list, call up 1,000 companies, and say, hey, will you take me? Well, here's the deal, and then you're arguing with a million different dispatchers that have never spent a day in trucking. They don't understand anything about it, and they're basically just an office jockey.
Yep.
It's which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's companies out there that probably say they're willing to help you get your CDL or whatever else for that matter. But then when all of a sudden it comes down to the nitty gritty, it's like they just don't help you. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people that came on stream and ask, how to get your CDL. I mean, I know the first part is you got to go down to your local DMV, get the books. They might tell you it's online. You got to study them books.
You got to study them books.
Get your physical.
And I mean, those things are the Bible compared to anything else. I've heard people say, well, I'll go online and look. No, you can't go online. That online stuff that they have otherwise else compared to the state level, you got to read your own books in there. If it's online, if their book publications are online, you got to download it, read it frontwards, backwards, left, right, sideways, this way, even in your sleep. And when you take that test is solely based on the state of that they're in. And then once you complete that and you got your driving permit, next you got to figure out where you're going to get your Fed Med card physical, because they're going to require that if you go to a school or wherever else.
Up here, you got to get your physical done first. You can't
That,
even apply to do the written test until you've been approved with medical.
Wow, that's
And
weird.
in our medical, if you're under the age of 45, your medical lasts for 5 years. If you're over 45, it lasts for 3 years. If you're over 60, you got to have it done every year.
Dang.
yeah, and it's the same thing. But it's the same thing as like you look at like their Ontario approved drivers. It's like the for those things like there's Challenger Motor Freight, which doesn't hire anybody.
No.
Schneider National doesn't exist. Edge GT 2000 is a crap company. Kriska, where Kriska goes, I got a training program,
Yeah, you got
and
to go to Prescott.
yeah, but the guy, but the guy still won't even hire them because they don't use their damn training program
No,
because he doesn't care about it,
no.
you know.
Well,
And
the
then there's
number the
the
number
other
of
one.
places that I've applied at, there's a dozen companies that keep coming up too, and I call and they
Yep,
hear a woman's voice and say, "Oh no, we filled that role yesterday. We
yep.
filled that role yesterday." It's like, asshole, you just posted this ad 4 hours ago. Stop
Yep.
with the bullshit canned responses. You're just choosing not to hire women.
A lot of them don't because a lot of them are
Tell them, Miss Julie. Tell them.
tell them. A lot of them are the old white businessman,
That's
Oh
how
no,
some of these
they're
companies
and they
foreign.
don't
are
give,
nowadays.
or they're foreigners,
They're
or they're
foreign owned.
or they're foreign owned. And
Yeah,
the
they're
thing
foreign
and the
owned.
thing about it is these foreign countries, women have no rights.
No.
Women are nothing. Women are literally property, and that's the reason why I refuse to do business with 90% of them because women and women and children are one of the most important things that you have, and that's basically why people getting into it. I'm like, especially in the states where there's the trucking companies with the in-house training programs that get people to CDL. Yeah, they sign a 2-year contract, but I tell them, if you want to get it, sign your 2-year contract.
And do
So
it.
that
Yeah.
so the company's got to keep you for 2 years and do it,
Yeah.
Yep.
because if not, you end up paying money to train somewhere, and it's like, well, okay, like sure, the Kriska guy may say, well, hey, my training school's opens this, but do I want to really relocate to Prescott, and do I really want to go through all this hassle for training that might not lead to a job because the guy's not going to guarantee you nothing? So you
Yeah.
just went through all that hassle for nothing.
And that's one of the thing, that I try to point out, is if a company's willing to take you on and literally, under their insurance, if they're self-funded, it's fine. But I mean, when it comes to the insurance, and then all of a sudden the company says, well, we can only pay you 25 cents per mile. And well, obviously to me, if I think 25 cents a mile and I'm the first time ever coming in here, I'm be like, oh heck, that's pretty good. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm getting 25 cents per mile. But the company's taking a huge risk on you that you're not gonna, crash the truck, turn it over, or whatever else for that matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of these people, and I see memes all over the time. Oh, I'm making 10 cents per mile and I'm living a good life. Well, 10 cents a mile, I mean, holy crap. I mean, they must really don't like you because 10 cents a mile is not a whole lot. But a lot of these companies that people don't realize that hire them on and they go through a training program through them, doesn't matter which company it is. But I mean, it's like you got to pay, you got to give it to the company for taking you on for the
Well,
very first time and going through their
yes.
process, going through their training, whatever else. Then all of a sudden, but you got a trainer with you that's on sitting in the passenger side for like let's say 6 months, and maybe the guy might say it might be less than 3 months or 2 months. And it's like, oh shit, this guy's got it down pat. Why the hell am I even sitting with him?
Yeah,
See, I've
but
got no problem spilling the tea, so I'm going to throw another company under the bus and name them. I'll name and shame. I really don't give a crap at
it's
this
like me.
point.
I'll name
Uh,
and shame too. I don't
th-
care.
So,
I just wasn't for
Let it
respect and
happen.
care,
Let it
yeah.
happen.
Let it
So,
and
ride.
so
We're
that's why.
uncensored.
Highlight Transport out of Concord.
Yep,
So they've got 750 tractors. They're Russian owned.
yep.
So this is their deal. So for a new venture, and that's a new driver without the 2 years experience, you're looking at probably $15,000 to insure that driver for the year.
Oh yeah.
So the deal that Highlight offers, you've got 2 contracts to sign. One is about an inch and a half thick, and that's the company contract, and you don't get a copy of that. You have to sit there, read it, sign it, and then there's a second contract, which is you signing up to stay with them for a year. That one you get a copy of, but the first one, the company contract, no, you don't get a copy of that, which is against the law in Canada. Any contract that you sign, regardless of whether it's for a freaking library card, by law, you are required to have a copy of every page. Period.
Yep. Even in the U.S.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so what Highlight will do is they will pay you 48 cents a mile, plus they'll give you 2 cents a mile safety bonus. And here's where it starts to get into the gray. Because you're a new driver, you have to pay them every paycheck $150 for the insurance deductible, because if you have a crash, the deductible on that crash is going to be $3,000. So every pay is $150, assuming that you've had no accidents. So yes, you get a 2 cent per mile safety bonus, but you have to pay $150 every paycheck for the insurance deductible. And now let's say, for example, you have had a fender bender and they fixed it in the shop. They didn't even put it through insurance. Well, that 150 now jumps up to 250, and it stays that way for the whole year that you're working for them. So do the math on that. $250 every week, you
Yep.
know. That
Well,
does
that's
that.
what I tried to say to people. Is that these guys will hire you, but they don't look at you. They look at you. Well, hey, your profit. ET Transport in
Yeah.
Toronto. That's another one. He'll say to the guys, "Hey, you owe $200 a month, $200 a pay for deductible, but hey, I'll put you on my in-house insurance."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm like, is it worth it? No. And that's kind of why I try to say people coming into the industry get the royal screw, because they're basically taught like whatever. And that's basically why I try to say to people, like, somebody asked me about the states and they're like, well, rural contractors offered me, hey, if I sign a 2-year contract, they'll train me for free. And I'm like, great, but look into it. But also take into account, well, hey, at least if you got a 2-year contract for the training, they've got to employ you for 2 years,
Yeah.
and you've already got your 2 years of experience. So at that point, if I want to go to the Kenworth dealer and buy a brand new T680 and not lease purchase, because I don't believe in lease purchase, even though I understand why Gary did it, and that's a totally another subject. But
Yep.
at least somebody's got the ability to do that and get insured at a reasonable amount of rate.
Well, the one thing, as we're speaking about the lease purchase, or I actually looked at somebody wanted me to look at a owner operators agreement not too long ago, and I was sitting there looking at. I mean, everything kind of looks fine, but then all of a sudden I get down to the point. It says, well, you need to. The longer you stay out, the better it is, because it's like they were saying, like, well, for 3 weeks, 1,000 miles or 1,500 miles. I'm like, whoa, wait. Red flag. 3 weeks, 1,500 miles. Either you're going to be sitting around, or else you're carrying some freight that's like really extremely heavy, and you're making really good money. That for 1,500 miles, let's say you're hauling a windmill tower from Washington State all the way to New York for 1,500 miles, even though it's further than that. But I mean, it's like there was red flags in that whole agreement that I seen, because it's like you got a truck payment, you got insurance to pay, and everything else, like what I got to pay on a weekly basis. And all of a sudden, if this guy's only going to get about 1,500 miles within a 3-week period, it's like there's red flags there. Because just like, saying, oh, you got to pay the insurance here for this and pay for that. I mean, I'm literally paying for everything. Lone Star pays for everything. When it hits our bottom line and everything else, and it makes us all of a sudden get worse into the red, because we can't afford something, because we're always paying for something. But I mean, just looking at some of these contracts that are out nowadays for, be your own boss, be your owner operator. that's why people like us, people come to us to look at them to say, hey, what's good about this? What's bad about it? Well, when I told the guy about it, it was like, I don't know what he decided to do, but I sure as hell told him straight out, this is not a good contract. You don't want to do this.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised on how many people argue with you when you say that. That's the thing about it
Yep.
too.
Yep.
Okay, it's like I grew up in Ontario, so I've seen their whole thing, and that's why I know every single company that Miss Jilly lists and what they're like.
Right.
Yeah, they're just sleazy. Now
They're
there's
just
a
sleazy.
now that then I can tell you about the recruiting agencies. Rig Rover is an example. That's actually the only company that's popping to mind. Forest City Staffing is another one. But there's about 5 of them that I have. Oh, Trucker Inc. That's another one.
Trucker Inc.
Oh
All
my
kinds
God.
of them.
Okay, so I was offered a job. It would be the afternoon or the evening shift. It would be 4, maybe 5 nights a week. The shifts would be 12 hours per shift, and it would be hauling groceries from Cambridge, which is near where I live, Cambridge to GTA, and it would be less than load. And hand bombing would be involved. Oh, yay, because we all love to do that. Um, at multiple different grocery stores throughout the night in Toronto. Um, the pay was interesting. So if you did less than 300 kilometers, the pay rate was 78 cents. And then if you did, and then it went down in tiers all the way. So we did the math on what it would be. And it ended up our minimum wage where I live is $17.60 an hour. Had I taken this job, I would have been making approximately 12 or $13 an hour.
Hmm.
Yep, yep. Because the recruiting agencies and the staffing agencies are made to benefit the company and the recruiters, not the drivers.
Yeah.
Because the company's paying them a fee to have the driver and do it and put that driver under their insurance. But instead, they're taking the big profit and screwing the user.
Yeah.
and
Right.
and and that's why I've said stuff to people, like a lot of people that got their CDL. I'm like, apply to a construction company, apply to like the contractors for snow removal and the road maintenance and that, because they're more open to take the new people because people won't stay in that long term because of the fucked up shifts.
Hmm.
Pardon the language, but
See,
at
and I
least
would prefer to work nights.
but at least I say at least you're going to get your years of experience.
Yeah.
And that way, then when you call a good trucking company with a half decent ad and say for looking for a team driver or something, become a team driver for a year with somebody and learn,
Yeah.
and not get the screw over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Champ can get involved, and Big Scoop can get involved with this. But between all of us here, what would you rather drive? Day, nights, afternoons, evenings
Nights.
into the mornings? What do you all want to drive? I mean, obviously for me, I don't get a really much of a choice. Whenever the load's ready, and if we can haul it, we're gonna haul it no matter what. If it's day, night, afternoon into the night, whatever, it don't matter with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would prefer to drive at night. I do my best sleeping between 6 a.m. and noon.
Night. I like night. I like night because at night you don't have to worry about the traffic as much. There's less cars on the road.
Yeah.
There's less boneheads, and it's the fact that if I can
Yeah.
set, is that if I can go on the interstate and I can, or a high freeway, I should say, or a highway. I try to Americanize myself because it's mostly an American panel. No, because just a lot of people don't understand Canada unless you're actually here, because it's a totally different country and it's a totally different layout because of the speeds and shit like that. But it's like, if I look at it, it's like this. Okay, if you go on the freeway and you're getting paid X amount of dollars per mile, because up here we get paid per mile even though it's in kilometers. But at least if you can set the cruise at 60 miles an hour, at least, and you're going through a city like Toronto and not dealing with gridlock, that's a lot better than sitting in Chicago and you're dealing with bumper to bumper traffic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it takes you 3 hours to move. It takes you 3 hours to move 10 miles
Yeah.
because you just made 25 cents in the
Yeah.
last 3 hours. And then that's why a lot of the people go, well, why do truck drivers drive how they do? It's like because you're getting paid by the mile or you're getting paid by the load. So anything that's holding you up from getting the other side is costing you money.
Yeah.
So let's
I drive at night. I haven't always driven at night, but I do prefer driving at night. But if you got a family, it is kind of tough to stay on the same schedule, especially you got kids in sports and stuff. It is kind of tough sometimes, but you know, it's pros and cons. You know, I like the nighttime. It's a lot less traffic, a lot less BS on the roads. You know, but you also have more construction usually at night. So
Yeah, I was
you
just gonna ask that next question. Now
yeah,
we're gonna throw a twist in there when all of a sudden the whole freaking
yeah,
construction crew comes in.
yeah, dude. I swear, the other night I had to go up to Charlotte, and on the way back down, I think it's 77 and 26, whatever them highways are over there, and yeah, I swear it was like every 30 minutes, and there's only two lanes on both sides. Every 30 minutes or so, oh, left lane blocked. Go another 30 minutes. Oh, right lane blocked. It's like, what the fuck is going on here?
When are you all gonna make up your goddamn mind what lane you're gonna keep open?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I do like being at nights. I get more miles. I can run more freely. I ain't got to worry about traffic is bad. But if you got a family and stuff, it is kind of tough sometimes
Well,
to keep a good sleep schedule. But yeah, I like driving at
Yeah.
night.
we got two
Yeah.
seasons up here. We got winter and we got construction. Just those two
Yeah.
seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just those 2 seasons, and sometimes those 2 seasons run together, depending on what's going on.
Yeah,
And
we just
I,
call them construction flowers. That's what we call them.
yeah, that's
Well, at least I
basically
call them that.
that's basically what it is, and that's basically why I say trucking is a lifestyle,
Right.
and more than anything, because there's a lot of people that I know that have got out of it because the fact that if you got a wife at home, you've got a husband at home, you've got kids, you've got whatever, it's crappy to try to keep up. Or there's like even some of the women in trucking that I know, a lot of them, their husbands are either tow truck drivers or they're construction workers or they're something, and all they see each other is when they come home at night. So or during the day, so they don't want to so much, you know, get out of it, but they're doing it because that's what life forced them into.
yeah. You're
That or
talking
else if
about
it's
that.
their way to make their living. Because I mean, I know during the summer months coming up here when school comes out, I'll see a lot of female drivers that'll have their kids with,
Yep.
because it's like otherwise during the school season, I mean, some of you they send their kids to day school, or they go to school and after that they go to a daycare or whatever else, or maybe the husband picks them up or boyfriend picks them up, whatever. But I mean, normally during the summer months, I usually see a lot more kids on the road than anything with their family or with their dad, their mom, whatever for that case.
Yep.
the other thing I want to bring up, I know my situation there because I left the road to take care of my kid, and I was talking to Gary. I've been recently looking at seeing if I should get back in it or not, and I may have millions of miles of experience, but everybody's gonna look at me like I'm a brand new driver.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you look at
And
it, is it really
here's
worth it?
here's
That's how I
here's
look
one
at
of the things that I want to add into this, since Big Scooby brought this up. This is a good point, Big Scoob. How many years have you been out of the trucking?
Probably about a decade.
So 10 years. Now, when you go to a company for, after getting out of trucking for after 10 years, because trucking does not like to see gaps at all in your driving. None. They don't care about maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, but when you go over 10 years, and this might be difficult for you, Big Scoop, maybe not, depends upon the company, but usually a lot of companies that'll see a 10-year gap in your driving career, they're hesitant to do that because, you know, if a good, like, let's say for me, if as long as you got it verified for 10 years, and if you were going to come to my company and I had something perfect for you, I'd say, yeah, come on over. You've got over how many years driving experience? You've had to deal with the idiots. I'll get my insurance to say, but there's some of these companies that might not even touch you because of that 10-year gap.
Yeah, they're looking at the past 5 years.
Yep.
That's what shows up on your CVOR.
That's what they're
The
looking
last
at.
5
Like
years.
the last 5 years, and that's what I kind of try to say. But it's also too. It's like I look at it like how many people have had kids ride in the truck with us, and we say to the kids, don't whatever you do, don't drive a truck. Like it's kind of sad that we've got to say that to them.
Yeah.
Right.
But the reason why we say that to them is because I look at all the kids who used to ride with me. They go, "Oh, wow, I want to be a trucker someday." I'm like, "No, you don't." I'm like, "Stay in school, go get an education," because the fact that all the hardships that we've seen, the way that we've been treated, the way the system has treated us, all that kind of stuff, is a difference between us saying, "Well, hey, it's great," or "It sucks."
And you know, somebody asked me, I think it was like last week, maybe the week before, would I want my kids to get in trucking? The way the trucking industry is happening now, I would not want my kids to get into it. I wouldn't even, even being an owner operator. I mean, to this day, I'll tell anybody that asks me, "Hey, is the owner operator worth it?" The way the shit is going nowadays, and the Department of Transportation is doing this and that. The only thing I like about the Department of Transportation is how they updated the ELD for us. That's one of the things. Now, if they get rid of emissions, great. I'll be happy about that. But I mean, it's like I don't even want my kids to get involved with trucking. I really don't.
Well, and especially with driver-facing cameras. My roommate is forever. Like, their cameras are supposed to shut off once the truck has been off for like 30 minutes, right?
But
When
they
he's in
don't.
sleeper berth.
But they don't.
No, and his camera is on 24/7.
It's on 24/7.
Yep.
It's like I know some guys at some companies or girls where their boyfriend came and or girlfriend or wife or whatever,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they came and brought them like the week's worth of food, and they'll be like, "Oh, you had a guest in the truck, or you were having activities, or you doing this, or you doing that," and it's like,
What the hell are you doing watching me when I'm in
that's,
sleeper berth? I'm
that's
not on the clock.
but it's like, what the hell are you doing watching me and my personal life when I'm not on the clock?
Right.
And now there's one thing where, like Gary said, well, I don't want an 18-year-old on the road like Brady. It's like I started on the road when I was 18. I don't see anything wrong with an 18-year-old on the road, but it's more the 18-year-old needs his company and somebody to teach him properly on how to drive it.
Yep.
Because I look at a lot of us were experienced from the truck at a young age or around them. Like, because I started around them on 12. I just think the number one problem is like the invasion of
Uneducated.
privacy, uneducated, and the invasion of privacy.
Well, in the sense of social responsibility,
Yeah,
our youth today versus, okay, you started driving when you were 18, maybe in the 80s.
I was in 2000s. Yeah, 2006. I started driving,
Yeah.
but
So
even the youth then was different. I agree.
exactly.
I agree with
The
that.
way of
So
life was different back then.
so back then you had to be accountable. That was hammered into you growing up as a youth.
Yeah,
It was hammered into you through any parent and through education, whereas now there is zero accountability.
Right.
Yeah.
The children today want to each be the exception. I don't have to follow rules because I'm special.
Right.
I need my safe space. I need my little time out. I want my participation badge because I showed up.
And I don't want to drive it late at night.
Yeah. And it's all about me, me, me,
Oh
me,
yeah,
me.
I do see the difference. But I just say it's. I don't think it's so much that they're bad. I just think that they don't have the education or the life experience. So to, to single them out 100% is not the best, because there is some exceptions, like the kid that grew up on the farm. The kid that grew up in different life situations that they're
And
responsible.
and they are the exception, but
Yeah,
that's it. They are the exception because the majority are not.
the majority
They
are not.
refuse to be accountable for anything, for their behavior, for their lack of motivation, their work ethic. There is no work ethic. Like when my 14-year-old boy had, stomping the foot, hand on the hip, saying, "You have to buy me a cell phone." I
Yeah,
have to do what now?
uh,
Excuse me, young man. I have to do what now? You have to buy me a cell phone. Otherwise, you're not being a responsible parent. Bullshit, young man. Shut up and sit down.
Right. I
you
brought you
know?
in this where I'll shove you back
I'll
out of it.
take you out, right. And I got 10 years between my two children. It's like your sister never had a cell phone ever.
Right.
yeah,
I was 25 before I got my first cell phone. Why do you think at 14 years old that you should have a cell phone? Where is this your constitutional right to
Right.
have a cell
Exactly.
phone?
Have I gone through that with kids? Let me tell you, champ.
yeah,
If you got kids growing up, look what you're
yeah,
looking forward to.
yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah, but
I got a 14 and a 10-year-old.
yeah, no, but I just believe that the kids are like anybody nowadays, where it needs to be. People need to get their CDLs under certain guidelines. People at a younger age need a different guideline to get them,
Yep.
Yep.
because I look at it like, okay, one of my big arguments right now with the government is, I said driving a truck should be an apprenticeship program the way a trade is,
Right.
because there's no reason why, I couldn't go to, I'll use Miss Jilly for instance, if that's all right. But
Hey, go ahead.
there's no reason why she shouldn't be able to go to the government organization and say, hey, I'll pay a small fee, and, and in exchange they arrange her with a company to do her training for say 2 years, or what most trucking companies want you to have. And as long as she reads the contract and says this is good, here's your CDL at the end of your 2 years, or whatever, here's your 2 years experience that a trucking company would take. Then that gives her more freedom of her career, because then she can call up all these companies and say, well, hey, I've got 2 years experience, and now she's available to the best fit for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead, instead she's stuck where, hey, she paid $12,000 for a school, and she's not hireable to 99% of the companies because they don't want to do the effort.
Exactly. Exactly. I did recently get a job. I haven't actually started yet because the season is just beginning, but it's hook and bin.
Yeah. No, stuff
Hook.
like that's good for the experience, but I'm saying it shouldn't come down to that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Yeah, and it's only part-time.
It shouldn't come down to that. You paid $12,000,
And
and
I'm eating ramen.
ramen, and they say it's a career in demand.
Hopefully, it's a good ramen.
No,
That,
it's not.
that, 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 that's all I'm saying, but it's
Yeah,
not. It's a career that's gone to crap, and people are complaining because it's all about it's all about how much money do I have to get into the industry to buy my own truck and buy my own insurance and become an owner operator with a company. So you're $100,000 in or more before you've logged a mile, and that's
Now,
what scares.
one of the key factors of buying a truck, I mean, okay, we've been very transparent on what we paid for our truck. Ours was a 2020. It had 400 some thousand miles on it. We were looking at about $160,000 that we paid for it. Almost paid off, but $160,000. Now, if I probably would have bought that off of somewhere else, off of some lot, I probably would have paid less at that
Well,
time.
I've already showed you what your truck is going for in the current market with spec how you want it,
Right.
and what we were around $60,000 to $70,000
Yep.
when I was
Yep.
showing you. So I was just going on that person. I was just going on their Canadian economy or American economy. I would say for $65,000 you could buy a T680 or a good fleet truck, spec how you want, used.
Right.
So basically, where I was trying to come from, was that you've got to spend that. You've got to buy your insurance
Yep.
before 90% of companies will touch you, and you've already you're going to pay. So you're going to pay another $35,000 for insurance for your first year. So now you're at 100, and you've already paid $12,000 to $13,000 for a driver training program. So you're $125,000 in the hole before you made money. Well, unless you're well off from daddy, there's no way that you can afford that,
Right.
or you're going into hell of a debt.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't realize this when you get into, being an owner operator. The amount of debt that you grab right away, other than buying the truck, paying the insurance right away, getting your license plate, unless the company's providing you one. Any 2290 heavy pre-tax before, like if you're buying like it in December, because it's usually July, I think is when July or September or August, whenever it gets renewed. So you're paying that in advance. And then on top of that, the company wants you to, let's say do 2 loads a week, which ain't barely paying, let's say $800, $900, maybe $1,200 if you're lucky. And then after that, when you get your paycheck, you wonder why you got like zero, absolutely
Yep.
zero. And
Yeah.
like Miss Jilly, you're eating ramen noodles for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks until you actually get a paycheck.
Yeah. But
2 years, Scary. 2 years I've
My
been eating
bad.
freaking ramen noodles.
But that's all I'm saying. That it's unfortunate that it's like that. Now, as far as the companies go, hiring, with the loads for the owner operators, I understand why they say so little miles, because unfortunately, the loads have to pay an X amount of rate per mile before your bidder can say, hey, yeah, I'll take that, or I won't take that. Because I know, well, hey, if a load doesn't pay X per mile, it's not even worth firing the truck up to go get it. And that's basically how these brokers at these companies are set up, where a lot of them bid from the stock market, and as well as their in-house customers. So, but there are a lot of their in-house customers for it. Like one company I did a lot of work for was Invista, where basically everything went out to the brokers, and the guys are sitting there undercutting the brokers at the companies, saying, "Hey, I'll haul it for this, I'll haul it for this, or I'll haul it for this," depending on where it was going.
Well, and then you have owner operators that are foreign owned and they've got 3 guys in the truck.
Yep,
Huh. I've
How
seen
can you
that.
compete
I've
with
seen
that?
that.
And
That's what
they
I'm
stop
saying.
at
That's
the
what
truck stop and they peel off their CVOR numbers and their DOT numbers and use a piece of paper and some good old duct tape and slap up some new ones.
Right.
they each
How
one of those
do you
guys have
compete with that?
each one of those guys got a magnet in the truck, and the guys can sit there and swap it.
Yeah.
But that's basically why I say that as an owner operator signing onto a company or driver. It's why the companies are only offering so little amount of miles, because like say some of the guys I know from India, they can run freight for $1.50 US a mile, versus if it takes me 250, 90% of the companies won't deal with me, because 90% of the companies will say, well, hey, why do I want to do business with Hamster when I can do business with Muhammad Inc. for half price? Because all they're worried about is getting their freight to market or to the receiver than the quality of them doing it. So for a lot of us, and the good rates, it's more specialized than it is anything else. And that's why I said stuff to like you, Gary. I'm like, if you want to get your own DOT and stuff for you and Carmen to drive together, you have to have a specialized gig for you guys to do it to make it worthwhile. Because if not, you might as well sell the truck or 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 find another company to lease onto, and basically that's gonna be under your requirements, and
Right.
and go get a bank loan and pay off your lease purchase.
Right. Well, before all this shit just started to get into play here, basically getting my spanking for the constant safety things that they have. I mean, it wasn't where to the point that I was putting people in jeopardy. It was just that, with the CSA score right now being so low, they're protecting that CSA score so much as possible, because the company has never seen a CSA score so low in the history since the company's been there. But, after a while, thinking about, okay, if I get my own DOT number, am I going to have to report to the government just like the company does? Am I going to have to, is Carmen going to have to go take a drug test? Be like, here, babes, here's a test cup. It's got to get sent in, and pay for all that. The requirements that the government's going to want with ELD and all that. I mean, am I going to have to deal with that? I'll have to deal with IFTA actually on my own, or else that's going to be something that Carmen's going to have to deal with more paperwork that she's not going to like to do. There's just so much more involved to it that just comes to the mind.
Yeah, and that's why I said my point of view. It's not that I'm against it. It's just you've got to have a better opportunity than the current company. Not to bash anyone, to make it worthwhile. Because if another company were to say, well, hey, you get your own company, you and Carmen come on, and I'll give you $3 a mile, it might be worth it.
Well, the last time I hired on with a company as an owner operator, I don't remember what it said. It was think it was like I think it was almost like $1.50. They said paid and empty. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, okay, $1.50 paid and empty. It's like, okay, after you sit there and you figure out the mileage, and then all of a sudden the deadhead, and then you figure out basically the fuel, I was sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not getting that much far ahead. I just ain't.
No.
So it's like, you really, with people that, that have never looked at a contract and actually figure out, everything. And I'm glad people come to our channel, or, if I don't know, I'm glad that if you, Lone Star, if you're on, that all of a sudden it's like, I really can't answer that question. I mean, Miss Jilly had questions, and I was like, well, the best person to get in touch with would be Lone Star. That's more based his expertise, but if I know it, I'll absolutely honestly give you my opinion. But if I don't know the two jack shits about it, I can't give you an honest opinion. But that's why, a lot of this we're having this today is to figure out, for people that want to be owner operators and people that, want to become owner operators, this is the kind of shit you got to deal with.
Yep. Yeah, but that's all I try to say, and I try to be as transparent as possible, without singling people out, because I just don't believe in that kind of stuff. But I'm glad I'll say straight up, the people more in context, what companies to avoid or whatever, because I look at it as you don't know who's going to be lurking,
Right.
and I've seen too many channel dramas
Right.
happen, because I've seen somebody drive for a certain company, and I'm like, and they're like, well, I wouldn't drive for them, or I wouldn't work for them. Like, I've got a friend in Texas that's a truck driver, and he's telling me all about all these American companies, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, you got to come to your own opinion as well, by being interacting with them, because some people have absolute great experience with some of them. Some people don't, because I look at Canada, for instance, and look at Canada's top 100 trucking companies. What percentage of Canada's trucking companies are actually scum companies that just bought up the majority of the share of the other companies and basically created a mega carrier?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
there's like there's Mullen Group, for instance. Okay, Mullen Group runs 20 different large scale trucking companies. So it's like because he runs 20 different trucking companies, he's in Canada's top 100 or top 50, what they call it. But it's like, yeah,
Right.
because you bought so much of it up. Or it's like you look at the states, Warner Enterprises. They bought ECM in Ohio. They bought so
Yep.
many of them. They bought so many of them up that they're basically a big carrier because basically these companies say, okay, buy the small guy out or the smaller carrier out and become a mega carrier. And they can become a mega carrier by buying. And the mega carrier just buys the smaller guy and the smaller guy and the smaller guy. And there's no fish left in the totem pole.
Right. Well, that's one of the things, since we're bringing up that conversation, with Warner buying out another company. Look at in the past few years, Swift bought Knight, or Knight bought Swift. I think it was the other way around. I think it was Swift bought Knight. I think it got to the point, either with the company itself, not delivering out, maybe crashing and delivering and brought a bad name to them. But I mean, some of these companies that buy out other carriers, it's like they're trying to get the further, in my opinion, it's like they're trying to get the further ahead in the trucking industry to oust out another company. Now, like, could Warner oust out JB Hunt? Well, they could try, but JB Hunt, they're literally into everything. They're into containers, they're into a lot of dry freight, maybe very little refrigerated freight. But for the most part, I mean, when a carrier buys out another smaller carrier or mid-sized carrier, they think they're getting further ahead. But there's so many things that we don't know the reason why the purchase of that company to benefit them. I know many companies they buy out, and I mean, I was frustrated because the company that I'm leased on to, they bought another company, a lot smaller, but for the most part, it took the shit away that I was doing going out west. So I mean, it's hard to get out west. But a lot of things that come into play with that, and until the real news about why the carrier bought somebody else out, it's left to be unseen.
Well, I know the answer for that. You know the answer to that too.
I would.
Yeah, think about it. What does every single carrier have?
Well, they got trucks, they got drivers.
But think about what employs the trucks and the drivers.
Are you talking like pay or?
Yeah, contracts.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So it all comes down to it. Okay. If I own, okay, I'll say for Canada. Okay. If I own Kriska, and say Kriska bought out Mill Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did Kriska bought out Mill Creek? Because now Mill Creek contracts can all go on their trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Their drivers can all pull their trailers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically that's why you buy out another company, is because say if Warner bought out JB Hunt,
Mm-hmm.
well, then all of a sudden the freight, the contracts go to those other trucks,
Right.
as well as their drivers.
Right.
And they've got all those other drivers to mix into it.
Well, that's what Fast Freight did with Challenger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Challenger sold 51% controlling interest to Fast Freight. Fast Freight has a crappy reputation in the industry, period.
Yep.
Challenger has a great reputation. So they bought that reputation, they bought that nameplate and those colors and that logo to put on all their trucks now.
Yep.
And they took a good company and made it shit.
That's basically what I'm trying to say, is that when the companies are either scum or good, they buy out for either because if your company's in trouble and all of a sudden you have a better name, then hey, okay, now everybody wants to do business with you until you realize that you're crap. And then once you realize you're crap, you end up buying another color, and you buy another color, and you buy another color, and meanwhile your contracts your freight, and all that keep continuing.
Right.
That's basically what you're. So basically, that's basically what these companies do.
Or they're bought to be put out of business.
Or they're about to be
Right.
put out of
Yeah,
business.
just to shut them down.
Just to shut them down because they're not competition, and you're getting
Yeah, you
the
get
asset.
their
Or
market
probably
share.
could be on top of that, maybe your DOT number might be in jeopardy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all that kind of stuff. It's like what the whole V2 said in your twist chat. The driver gets the shit end of the stick. It's like the drivers do, because unfortunately, you as a driver, you as an owner up, you as a company driver, you as a mechanic, whatever your opinion is, your opinion is never voiced.
Right.
It's more a matter of fast freight sees fast freight sees um, Challenger's a good company, and they give them an offer, and then the owner of the Challenger says, "Well, holy fuck, I can get an X amount of dollar payout for investing thing, because I look at, if you invest $500,000 and somebody offers you $1 million, how many people will say, woohoo, I'll take that
Right.
all the way to the bank?"
That's why I was saying, it's like, granted, I'm not a very big company for my own company, but it's like I said, for me, if I would sell out right now, I mean, it's like if I would sell out, I would have to have at least $1.5 million, because by the time I would want to get out of the trucking company, I still got licensing, registrations, and all this other shit I got to pay. And if there was still a truck payment, that's got to all get paid off, and just for me to get out of it. I tried to get out of trucking a few years ago, and it just sucked me back in, literally. So, I mean, if I probably would have been able to get out of trucking or had something else easily or lined up to get out of trucking, then I probably would have done it. But it seems like once you're in trucking, they suck the money out of you. And when you try to get out of trucking, they suck the money out of you even more yet just to get out of it.
But no, that's basically what I tried to say, though, is, you know, that's basically what it comes down to it with all these mergers and all these buyouts and all these companies running under each other, is because the biggest uh because the biggest thing about it is, okay, you need to put something in the door and in the back of the trailer to make a profit.
Yep.
So basically means, if I go buy all these companies out that are big, reputable names, well, then my reputable name sticks around, and then all of a sudden now, myself at Briska, I can go pick up Mill Creek trailers, or I can Challenger, you can go pick up Fast Freight, or whatever, or whatever, whoever buys whoever can go pick up their other company's stuff and basically flood the market.
Right. But yeah, I mean, there's, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, they brought it up, it's like, well, what would you do if you got out of truck? Well, first I got to get out of it. That's the main one. Having something else to kind of, get me along. I mean, you've got to start with something. And if you want to get, because like, let's say tomorrow or tonight, I say, well, screw the damn company. I'm not gonna sit there and move my truck. I'm gonna get out of it. I'm gonna go come Monday, I'm gonna go look for a job. I'm gonna find the best paying job I can, but let's say maybe I find something that's $15 an hour. Well, regardless if I decide to do that and I go to my new job starting Monday, $15 an hour, 40-hour week. Might not even get any vacation or whatever else. Regardless if I go to that new job and that truck is sitting up in the yard, I still got insurance, weekly insurance to pay. I still got a truck payment to pay. So basically, my paycheck that I would get that, to help support my family is literally got to go to pay for that truck. Literally. And whatever is left, probably not even going to come to my family because it's all got to get invested in the truck. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard to get out of trucking. It's not like a job that you can just say, well, screw this place, I give up. I'm going to go get hired in a new place, and that's it. That's done. It's over with. When it comes to being an owner operator, and you got active payments, it's just something. It's not like a job. You say, well, I quit. I'm going to go find something else. It's not like that for an owner operator.
No, it's not like that for anyone.
Yeah.
But the owner operator has it even worse.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a matter of, as an owner operator, you've got to wait for all your stuff to transfer over to the new company's DOT. You've got to change a plate on your truck. You've got to wait for your new insurance to kick into force. You've got to wait for your new IFTA. You've
Yep.
got to wait for so much more. And even as an owner operator itself, that you own your own DOT and all that, you have to wait for the payroll changeover from me going to haul freight from company A to company B, because there's stuff, some companies don't pay you out for your freight for a month. So you're carrying your whole payroll for a month and my expenses, you know? And that's basically why I try to say to people, you know, the owner operators, it's more and more of a lifestyle than it is a job. And even as, because once you get to the owner operator standpoint, you've got to be willing to put your cards in and go to the point that you are basically saying, I'm here or bust. As a company driver, you get screwed around from the point where, hey, your company's got no freight for 3 days, and I can't go out on a load board or somewhere and say, well, hey, what you got me for freight? Or you can't call a buddy at another company and say, hey, you got any freight? Versus some guy is an owner operator with his own DOT numbers and stuff like that, he can call into another company and say, well, hey, I'm stuck here in Toronto and I really want to go back to Halifax. You got anything? Well, at least I can call 5 companies, and one of them might have a load, even though it pays like crap, that I can take.
Right.
Versus your owner, as your thing. Well, no, the only thing with being a company driver is no, because you're still only paid per mile or per layover pay or whatever that the company's got as a deal.
There might be companies that don't pay any of that. I mean,
Yeah,
that one instance where I was a company driver and I got stuck at the weight scale because apparently there was an overweight going over an overpass, and sign, I didn't see the sign, and I didn't get no layover pay for any of that. I ended up waiting at the scale with, like, I don't know, it was like a $25,000 fine that the company ended up paying out. But I mean, I didn't get paid no layover for any of that, and that was just basically something that I had to basically deal with. But the only thing is like they paid for the hotel because I ran out of hours. I finally got cleared from the DOT scale because this was in the state of Illinois. The company ended up paying it because it was basically theirs. But basically after that, I mean, I didn't get no layover pay. Got out of
yeah,
the hotel, got back on the road, got where I needed to go, got back home that night. And then I don't know, it was like a month later or something or another. I was like, well, was there anything else out of that thing? And there's like, any layover, anything else? Like, nope. That's
yeah,
basically, you got to suck that up, Buttercup.
yeah. That's basically what I try to say to people is, every single position in the industry or any single role has got its benefit and it's not benefit, and you've got to look at it as a difference is, a guy running for Pepsi, he might get paid $20 an hour to drive a truck, but he's got to do the manual labor. But at least you're going home at the end of your day making $20 an hour. And a guy running fuel for a fuel company, he's got he might get paid per hour, but he's got to deal with the unload and load of fuel and all that calculation. The guy running regional, doing drop and hook, getting paid per mile, well, he's got to deal with, hey, what happens if I pull into Columbus and I have no freight here for 2 days and I have no layover pay? Well, you better hope that you got something fun to do to make it worthwhile, or it sucks ass.
Yeah, because like with Champ, I mean, obviously he's doing a line haul, so I mean he's absolutely home every night. Could I have that possibility where, you know, everything that I do? Yeah, I could, but I know there's a guy locked into the contract that does everything around the state. So I mean he's been doing this, oh, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years now. Almost, and he's been locking up all of the state. And you know, like when all of a sudden I'm looking for a quick load, you know, to get at least one more load in for the week, you know, because like let's say we got, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago, we got home on a Wednesday, and it's like, well, can I get another load? And they were like, we don't have anything. What do you mean you don't fucking have everything? I mean, it's like all of a sudden it's like I'm ratting off places where I could do a load in the state, and they're like, nope, taken, nope, taken, nope, taken, nope, taken. I was like, I know who's got the goddamn thing, and they won't give it up. But
That's kind of what my thing about it was, right? But then I'm
yeah,
also like, as an owner up, some people I know, they travel with their girlfriend, they travel with their wife. Even one of them drives. Well, at least, hey, I'm pulling a load out of Toronto to Florida. Well, hey, after 3 weeks of driving, I can go spend the weekend in the beach. We can enjoy the scenes.
right,
And the truck is paid for my vacation. Are there some guys that do it, retired? They've got 20 years in and they're traveling with their wife and they're going, well, hey, why don't we go and visit these states? Where the guy will sit there and he'll bid on his loads and he'll say, okay, take me on a load from Michigan to Texas. And in Texas, you'll spend a couple of days off in Texas and drop the trailer off at the depot and say, okay, let's go try barbecue. And then you might be willing to go to Montana, so you'll wait. No, there's a load in Texas going to Montana. You'll go do the same thing.
all right. Now, Hall asked the question, what do you think about private contracts with military?
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't know because I've done stuff like that. I look at it as good from one aspect, but it's a matter of you got to understand any contracts you run from start to finish, and what's involved, and what they're giving you, and what you got to provide.
Right,
Like I had one contract which was to haul, like military equipment for training exercise to an Air Force base, from one Air Force base to another, to go on a plane. And it's like, okay, this is great, but it's a matter of, are you going to provide the unloading, the loading? Is my time worth it? I feel like, as I say, everything's got its benefits and everything's got its rewards.
right. Yeah, I mean, depending upon the load, now especially like a government load. I mean, okay, the government might want a hair sample. The government might want a DOT sample. Every load that you haul that might be military, I mean, you never know. They might want your firstborn son.
Yep.
But or daughter, whatever the two. But the thing is, it's like, depending upon, some of the brokers that I've dealt with over the years. I mean, I've dealt with some really great brokers, and I've dealt with some brokers that were complete ass. The one broker that I dealt with for the first time, that when I was in Washington State, I could not say enough about that broker, how good he was. First load I ever hauled in Washington State, and he was like, okay, this is how it's going to work. Any problems whatsoever, you call me. I take care of it. Something they don't like, you call me. I take care of it. One thing I had to do with that load is like every because we were hauling Bang cherries back, he's like, every pallet that goes on, I got to have probes from 3 different parts of the product, at least 3. I need them text messages to me and go from there. Any problems? at all. You have them call me. If it comes from the shipper, any problems, you call me. Bad product getting put on there, you call me. I mean, I took a picture of it and I was like, nope, not going on there. He's like, well, this is part of the product. I was like, nope. Here, call the shipper or call the broker. So, I mean, yeah, I've had great brokers, and I've had brokers that be like, you call them in the middle of the night and they're supposed to be 24 hours and you can't get a hold of freaking nobody except for an automated system,
Yep.
and it's getting to the point now. You mean like the company I'm leased onto. I was like, I told the president that one day, I was like, when are we going to automated? He's like, well, what do you mean going to automated? I was like, well, hell, I can't get a hold of my goddamn dispatcher in any way, shape, or form. We can't talk to the planners. So when are we going to automated? I was like, I'd rather talk to a damn machine and see if the machine does more than what trying to call the dispatcher on. So
No, it's true though, because there's a lot of brokers out there, and there's a lot of companies that are not for the driver. It's about moving the freight as fast as possible and as cheap as possible and there's a lot of them, the brokers especially, that are more salespeople than they are people in trucking that understand the whole industry. So
right.
it's more about okay, if I go bid on your load and I go put and say your asking price is $2,000 and I bid three, the person will call me the minute I bid $3,000 and try to sell me on the load for $2,000 instead of saying, well, hey, what can we do here to make a deal?
Mm-hmm.
Or what do you need to run at a lower price? That way, at least I can say, well, hey, here's the deal. It's okay. I'll run your Costco load for 2,500 instead of three, but I wanted my deal. Okay, if I'm stuck in the door waiting for an unload or whatever, or they refuse the load if it's drop and hook or whatever, that for a certain time and I'm stuck there waiting, well, you're going to compensate me by $500.
And hopefully they do that, because there are some companies that won't do jack diddly shit.
No, but no, but that, but the side, no, but it's basically what it is, and that's why at least if you got a written agreement where a broker signed, then it all comes down to is this really worth challenging, or is it do I put it in the back of my head to remember?
Right.
Now as far as the haul guy goes, there's always somebody willing to haul for pennies. Well, there's
Right.
always somebody willing for haul for pennies because it's also a matter of when you got three guys in a truck and the guys have no overall expenses other than paying for that truck, that they'll have the load there next day instead of somebody else taking 3 days because you got three guys logging the miles.
Right. That's one of the great things, when I was hauling expedited. I mean, I'd get a phone call. And this is one of the bad things when it was early in our relationship between me and Carmen. When I had to leave and go on the road, I mean, we had to take two cars every time, because I was always on call, and either I could accept the load, or if all of a sudden I was like, maybe say, well, this weekend I'm not gonna take another car, because I always had my carrying pack with me, or my luggage bag, all my stuff with me, and always had to take two separate cars, because if I ever got that phone call and had to go out on the road and we were at a family function, I'd have to leave that family function. But that was one of the great things about expedited, and that I really liked. As soon as we got to that truck, it didn't matter. We weren't stopping unless it was some driver that just wanted to follow something. But that truck constantly kept moving from when we picked up to when we delivered, and especially the beautiful look on people's other drivers' faces that would cuss at you because you go right to the front of the line. You go right to a dock door. As soon as an arrival, dock door. If you don't get unloaded right away, it's $35 an hour times two for both drivers, and it goes up after that. So it was like expedited was a really great experience that I really loved. And if I ever decide to go back into it, instead of dealing with brokers all the time, I would do that.
Because that's basically what I was trying to say to you. That's the only way that it's worth getting your own numbers or having Carmen drive with you. Is that if you guys do expedited together, upgrade your truck to a nicer truck that both of you guys like, or fix up one of the Volvos, or do something that you like,
Right.
and you guys go do that together, and you enjoy. It could be profitable, but it's the question is do you have the time to do it, or the want to do it, or are you willing to make that kind of investment together to do it and not deal with their headache?
Get one of them super sleepers.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've seen some of those super sleepers.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'd be able to afford that, because you're probably looking at $250,000, 200,000 up to 300,050.
No,
That's minimum.
that's minimum. Those RE sleepers, like a lot of the companies are buying them. They're paying about $400,000 for the trucks with them.
Yeah.
But no, but I just say, you could do something like that, because you guys might get to a point where someday where you guys gonna say, hey, there's no kids at home now. Let's sell the house. Let's buy something like that out of the house profit and invest, and then somebody will call you for expedite, and then you'll say, hey, all of a sudden there's a load out of Wisconsin going to Florida, and you guys be like, well, hey, let's hang out on the beach for the weekend.
Yeah.
You guys got the fuel paid for. The truck's your home.
The only bad thing about that is trying to find a load out of Florida that's going to pay worth of shit. Now, granted, if there's a government seas load, yeah, that'd be no problem. But I mean, it is so hard to find something. You'd have to find a load that was from a nearby state. So, like hauling, like let's say if you get like a beer load or something that's going to a nearby state, then it kind of helps. But if you're trying to go back from Florida right back to Wisconsin, you ain't gonna find jack shit.
No, a lot of times that people do is they'll deadhead even to Georgia or whatever to pick up to go back. I just mean as an example. The truck can be your income, and that's what I try to say to people. The truck can be your income, and the truck can also be your vacation.
Right.
Or it can be your time together. It can be whatever you want to be.
Also, the people don't realize those mega trucks weigh 35, 40,000 just on the truck.
Oh yeah, they weigh another 5,000 pounds over like a W900 or whatever, and that's half the reason why the guys put it all in the W900s or the 389s or the big trucks for the most part, because they weigh more, and it's a matter of that you got to have your permitting and stuff like that to haul a higher weight in these states that you go to in order to make it legal.
But a lot of these that I see out on the road, they're either hauling like furniture, cars. Maybe I've seen one with a flatbed. But I mean, those are the major three that are hauling with these big old things, or even expedited.
Yep.
FedEx. I've seen some people from FedEx that are, that are hauling with them, because I mean, obviously they're making money on an extreme expedited.
Yeah, but it's also a matter too with FedEx too, though. Is that okay, if you're hauling expedited with FedEx, what's it to pay the state of Wisconsin or the whatever states you're going to run to expedite it an extra couple $100 a year for which it's not more than a couple $100 a year, but to pay for the permit, because all of a sudden your loads are paying so much more. It offsets having a yearly permit
Right.
for all these states, because it'd be like if I could buy 48, I would never buy California. So, but I'm saying, okay, if I could buy 48 state permit for 10 grand a year to run my truck at 95,000 pounds versus 80, some guys will do it because they'll be like, well, hey, the loads are paying this much more, so you know what, it's worth it, because it all comes down to it. It all comes down to it is money and what's your profit there.
Right.
It all comes down to it. Even if you're somebody that's an owner or operator, or you're somebody that's a company driver, if a company's willing to pay you more to do something, at some point, I'm sure you'll say yes.
Right.
You know, if a company said to somebody doing drop and hook, I'll give you an extra $200 to wait an hour for a load. I'm sure you will.
Well, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, it'd be nice to have one of those big trucks, but I'm not, I'm glad I don't miss like probably well, you figure like the truck that's $400,000 and your payment's probably a week, probably let's say maybe $1,700 a week. I'm not gonna miss that. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'm not
just
saying to do it. I'm just saying these guys do it because if your loads are, if what you're hauling for freight offsets the added money,
right,
it's
right,
worth it. If it's
right,
not, then it's not.
right. But would I miss that? No. I mean, we're almost done with our truck payment. So I mean, it's what did Carmen say? I think we were down to now like I think 12,000 down left on our truck. So I mean, it's like um well, I'm not gonna jinx it. I'm not gonna knock on wood. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna leave it like that because usually I know what happens after that shit.
Well, even at that shit, it's basically the same thing where you're stuck. And I basically said, you know, it's basically the same thing. It comes down to it is, you just got to play every day with what it is. And maybe your truck's paid off and you got equity and you can trade it for something you want,
All right.
or you invest in it and you build what you want out of it.
That would be something if I could trade mine off, find a 2020, same amount of miles, has a 13 speed, 530 horse, had no other all that other miscellaneous crap on it, I would be in heaven.
That's all I'm saying. Like, the Cummins has the 565 X15. So it'd be like, that they make it with the 13 speed, 325 rear end, and be like, okay, well, hey, if a company were to say to you, well, hey, I'll give you your truck's paid off, it's worth 60, and you'd be like, well, hey, if you can get truck spec'd out how you want for say 65, you go, well, hey, I'll pay the difference out of pocket and I'll enjoy
Right.
it and we'll drive it.
Right. Definitely indeed.
Or you say, well, hey, my truck's paid off now. I'll take the 60 grand and I'll go drive for a company that to pay for, that gives me a truck I want.
Right. Right. Gary, feed me dinner. Feed you dinner? I haven't even ate myself yet, Warner. What are you talking about? I thought you were going to feed us dinner.
Uh,
I think, who else agrees? I think Warner should be feeding us dinner. Sucks for you then. So anybody got any other questions to ask us? Because I know there are people that probably got lingering questions. Yes, Warner. So you gotta give us steak and eggs and lobster and all that other stuff, Warner. You're buying tonight. You said you were giving us your card tonight, so we're gonna take advantage of that. But if anybody's got any questions, definitely for us, you're more than welcome to ask them now. Because I know Carmen came down like about an hour ago and said supper was ready.
I think it's an ad break.
Hey, you remember the time you forgot to put the pin on the trailer and you drove away? Pin on what trailer? What you guys think about e-trucks? E-trucks. What do you guys think about electronic truck or electric trucks?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
I don't know. I think they got their place.
No,
I,
I'm good on that.
I'm not interested in owning one, but I think they've got their place because I look at it like there's a lot of places where, like underground mining and that kind of stuff, where emissions are, toxic to people. But I look at for that the e-trucks are more better for their own specialized market than for general freight moving.
How long does it take to charge one of them things?
Well, that's the
Uh,
Well,
thing.
I
And
was
and
I was at a place,
how
Campbell Soup.
frequently would you find somewhere to charge it up in Canada?
well,
I-
there's all kinds of them. There's all these electric charging places. But the big thing about it is that it takes 4 hours to charge.
Mhm.
But
Damn.
I was at a Campbell Soup facility, and they said it takes 8 hours to fully charge an electric
yeah, it
yard
takes
truck.
And
eight to 4 hours.
how much time you get to use it?
You get they get it all depends on how much you use it. But
Yep,
I look at it more. The electric trucks are more meant for like a yard or like
City truck.
vocational or city truck. Like if maybe one thing like okay, Toronto uses it for garbage. They use electric trucks or whatever, or like a Campbell's uses it around their yard or somebody. But on the freeway, it's just not a good thing.
Uh,
well, you got to figure you got gravity against you got, especially if you're going up a hill. I know I'm going to get some retribution for this, but
that
I
would
hate to
suck.
say it, but we don't have a flat surface all the way around. So I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like you can just go straight across something and not worry about hills and going up a hill. So
Right.
And look what
yeah,
it's
happens.
going to take more.
Look what happens to a battery with the cold.
yeah.
Yep.
The stuff like this truck's like Edison build is a totally different thing because it's hybrid electric, and that's the way that the trains are set up. Where basically you never need a battery because you've got an engine making electricity all the time.
Right.
So if you did something like that with like a alternative fuel source, like say a propane or a natural gas, it would be a lot more able to withstand the long haul over the road use. But no, the current infrastructure for it sucks.
Now, has anybody in here used a compressed natural gas truck?
I've
No.
used them. I've used them.
No, I've
What
never used one of those.
What did you think of it?
No, I don't think it's that bad. I just think again, it's more the fact that in our climate, is the trucks were never meant to run on it because people were converting them existing engines, and basically, Cummins is the biggest manufacturer of the CNG,
Yeah.
and it's basically the Cummins block. Everything's the same, but the cylinder heads, and that's basically why when you look at the next generation of Cummins engines that's coming out to replace the X15, I was at the factory looking at them, and it's basically all the same block, and it's basically a different head makes it a gas truck or a propane truck or a CNG
Right.
or a diesel or whatever. So it's kind of good that people got the choice, but I just feel like again it's a market thing that it's not the best.
Yeah, because I mean, I've used one before I became an owner operator. They're not bad. I mean, granted, going up a hill, I mean, they're not so much good. Sorry, Fry. But for the most part, I mean, we get done at the end of the day. You go and top it off, go down because just like anything else, you top off the tank, get it ready for the next guy if he was going to use it. But the one thing though about them, it seems like when you filled them up and then you parked them, it would say it was at 90%. You come in the next day, nobody used the truck. Things down to 80, 85%. It's like, where the hell did it leak out? If all of a sudden it's down at 80 or 85%, where the hell did the compressed natural gas go? Is it leaking out of a valve or something or another? But I mean, for the most part, every single time when we came there the next day, always had to sit there and like possibly fill it off before we got going because if you had a trip when they came out with, yeah, granted, it was like 99 cents a gallon at that time, and it was a lot of people benefited off of it being 99 cents per gallon. But now since it has rised up, I mean, now they're paying for it, but they were a good truck. I can't really complain other than if you had an issue. And believe it or not, I can confirm this, but some of them did actually have spark plugs in them, literally.
Yeah, and with them, the other issues too is that their fuel is temperature sensitive. So it basically meant that when you filled up the tank and the truck was hot or the tank was hot from using it, and it was say 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and the next day it was 65, it would either swell or contract because of how that fuel's made.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically that's the problem is that those tanks had no heating or cooling, so they'd basically lose fuel. But I more looked at it was good at the time because people were getting it for dirt cheap. It was like
Right.
half the price of diesel.
Right.
And it's like I tried to say to some people, would you use a different fuel source for a vehicle or a truck if it cost you half the money?
Warren's asked, "What's the best rim size for a wheel?" Well, for us, usually most times on most trucks, usually a lot of companies will put low profiles on as much as possible.
Yeah, but
$22.5.
it's basically 22.5 is basically it 22.5 is basically the standard, but it's also a matter of fact that like a lot of the older trucks had 24 fives, but it's a matter of that the 22 fives, at least if you need a roadside service, it's a rim and tire that's common. That a lot of roadside service companies, especially for fleets, the roadside service company will basically recycle rims, and basically a guy will sit there on a machine and mount up a whole bunch of tires on rims and say, well, hey, this is going on this is going on a Schneider Inc. truck, and they basically have an allotment of 11 rims or whatever in the area, and basically you'll have them marked, and they'll basically swap them out all the time instead of having a guy sitting there on the side of the road for half an hour mounting and unmounting a tire. The guy will sit there for 5 minutes and swap a rim and tire is one.
Right. Yeah, because for the most part, a good majority of the tires that are on mine, other than steer tires, I've got the super singles. I know there's a lot of people out there that'll say, no, they don't like to have the super singles, but um, I don't know. Champ, do you run super singles on your trailers or do you run duals? But for the most
No,
part,
no, we have duels.
you got duals, even on your dollies.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
we're duels on everything.
okay. But for me, I know how a lot of drivers out there they say, "Yeah, screw that super single." You blow your tire, you're screwed. Well, yeah, that might be the case, but I've also taken over 1,000 pounds of weight off of the truck. Um, so that granted, if they do shove me in a load, and I'd rather not, they could shove me in running 45,000, 46,000 with the way the truck is, but um, I'm trying to add more weight so that I can narrow it down of how much they can give me because lately they've been giving me loads of where it's like near borderline. And I'm like wondering, well, why the hell me? So, that's why I try to, keep the super singles on and because I'm just used to them. I've ran them for ever since um, I became an owner operator and I've never had an issue. But recently, wasn't this year with this set of tires, but I just put a set on and then eventually I had to change out a tire, but I had to literally buy another tire because I didn't have any miles on them. So I just ended up buying another tire to kind of match because if you kind of off match one on the axle, it'll throw off everything. So LED or
Yeah,
regular
but
headlights.
I also look at super singles too, though. It's also that fact of the matter is too is that when you lighten your trucks up, a dispatcher will know what you're hauling, and a dispatcher will say, "Well, hey, how come Gary's hauling these loads that are heavier than somebody else?" And then every single time you get a heavier load, that they'll basically you'll be on the top of their list.
Right.
And it also comes down to too is a lot of guys don't like super singles or companies just because it's the fact that then you're buying a $2,000 tire versus buying $1,000 tire because somebody had a flat.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't, replace in pairs or replace in drive axle. There's a lot of guys that'll cheapen to say do one. You know, now LED versus regular headlights. Again, it all depends on the design because the regular headlights are good because they put off heat versus the LEDs don't, but the LEDs can see better. So it really all comes down to it is is the headlight heated? What's your operating season? There's so many variables.
Now, see, for me, I would run LEDs, but obviously, of course, I live up in the north. It's cold. I had LEDs on the Godmother and ran into a winter season, and all of a sudden, I was, I was surprised I didn't even look like I had lights on because with LEDs, it glazed up the whole light. And next thing you know, I get out and I'm looking and I'm like, oh shit, no wonder why people looks like they can't see me. Because there's no heat generated there. That's why I've left the Queen Boss the way it is with incandescents. But I guess there's a way to kind of clean the lens. I'm going to have to pull out the 7 bolts. I think it's in there. Pull out the dome and put some good cleaner on there and clean it up because otherwise when you guys see on the cam, you guys say it looks like a great view, but when I look at it, it's like if you guys seen my view, my actual view, you guys be like, shit, how the hell does he even see? Especially when it rains. It's worse when it rains. And I definitely got to try getting something that's LED on there to kind of brighten it up so that I can see it, even if it would be like a fog light. But
Yeah, but that's what I try to say. Like there is stuff like heated LEDs that you can buy, and they're great.
right,
Now as far as Brady goes, well, they're blinding and bright. They're bright and they're blinding. Well, it's also a matter too. They're big trucks, and how much more farther you can see down the road
right,
in a truck or a personal car is a matter of the difference between stopping, because the van full of kids is broke down on the side of the road, or driving right through them because they're broken in your lane.
right. And one of the things that even with like passenger cars, four-wheelers on the road, some of them got like blinding lights. So it's not always just the semis. It's also people that are also in four-wheelers too.
Yeah, but it's also too lights are safety. Like
Right,
like without lights, you can't see at night. It's like nothing worse than you driving down the road at night and you get behind somebody and they didn't turn their headlights on, so there's no lights on.
right. Yeah, because
That
I've seen it already where there's people that got no lights on, and it's like, what the hell are you doing on the damn road?
Yep. I don't know. That's the thing about it is there's two sides to every single story.
Yep,
So it's all a personal opinion.
right.
All right, brother. Well, I hate to rush off here, but I got to get on now. There.
Yeah, copy that, champ. Well, thank you definitely for joining us in tonight and stuff. Yeah, we should be starting to cut this down because I got to go eat supper
Yeah.
yet myself, and probably Miss Jilly and Big
Yeah.
Scoop and Lone Star's got to eat. So I think we're gonna start shutting this down. But thanks, champ, for
Yeah.
joining us. We appreciate it, brother. You stay
Oh
safe
yeah,
out there.
appreciate the invite. We'll
You
see
Thanks
y'all.
betcha.
for having us.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. And hopefully
So
people learned a lot about trucking, and hopefully you learned more about trucking in Canada that we didn't really get as much into last time because I was the only person from Canada other than Wheel Burner but he wasn't a part of the panel, so
right,
most of them didn't get how Canada's a unique animal.
right. And I definitely learned a lot more, with the border crossing stuff. Because I mean, I knew some of it, but I didn't know the whole in-depth details of it. But
I never
um,
really got into it either because unless there's somebody else to talk to that understands it, it's kind of awkward.
right.
and that's why I like my thing about trucking is I always try to have a more of American point of view than the Canadian point of view because the American point of view is what I see more featured on Twitch and different live streamers. I don't really see too many live streamers from Canada that stream trucking.
Right.
So it's more it's harder to talk about kind of because it confuses people.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Lively, indeed. I want to definitely thank, like I said, I want to thank Champ, Lone Star. I know he's just got home from the ice roads, and Miss Jilly and Big Scooby for taking the time for tonight to coming across, sit down with us and go through all this. So hopefully everybody that's in the chat, hopefully you guys got to learn some things. If you ever got any questions, you can always email us at we the people 7576. That email is still active yet, believe it or not. Every once in a while, we do get emails from people, and sometimes we respond to them. And I don't know, Carmen said lately we've gotten a couple spam mails, so we put those in the trash, regardless how we looked at it. But we definitely want to thank everybody for taking their time out on Saturday. I'm still actually currently watching the radar as we're still talking here yet. I'm hoping I ain't got to go plow snow after this. What up, Ashley? So, but definitely again for everybody that's came on today on Saturday, thank you very much. Lone Star, be safe.
No problem.
Enjoy the home time because I know you need it. Miss
Yeah.
Jilly, hopefully things get better for you. Like I said, if there was something more we could have done, to hired you on, we probably would have done it to got your years of experience and then could have gone wherever you wanted. And I know Big Scoob, he's got a big decision coming up. So I guess, Big Scoob, whatever you decide to do is what you decide to do. You got our support because we know you got to do what you got to do to survive and everything else and everything else. So
yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat. If somebody was from Canada and I was able to hire them on, I would. But just with the economy and stuff like that, I can't do much for other people at the moment because the economy's all screwed up here.
all right.
And the thing about it is for me, like I'll never complain about how much is to be made, but with the changes of what's to be made, I try not to subject other people to it because I believe in people making fair wages.
The one other thing that I want to do first too is this year again we are going to be doing the Next for Autism. We have also partnered up with Team Chaos, Miss Cheddar, 514, and all them. We are going to be starting that early this year, even though they start theirs in April. Because of the uncertainty with us during the week, because we're supposed to be working Sunday till Friday, and the company doesn't give me that because like a few weeks ago we were home by a Wednesday. So we are going to be doing the charity again this year with Team Chaos. We've teamed up with them. I'm going to put the QR code in here right away. This will be the QR code that'll come up. And I think I even might have that maybe up in the later on, but we are definitely teaming up with Team Chaos. Now this year it's directly going strictly to hers. So anybody that donates for the charity, it's going to go directly towards hers because she's got everything all set up. There was a little bit of confusion last year with it with us because we did do our own charity on Twitch, and we were also paired up with Miss Cheddar's as well. But this year we decided to team up together as doing just one. She's got a video coming up here soon, but we will be starting this Next for Autism, starting out this upcoming Sunday. So this little symbol on here, you will see that pretty well throughout the next 2 weeks and in the whole entire month of April. I don't remember what she grossed last year. I think it was about over 2,000. Maybe what it was. Let's hopefully this year we can surpass that and try getting up to at least 3,000. Great cause. Like I said, this will be the second year that we've done it. So when you see this is teaming up with Team Chaos and Miss Cheddar for their charity. So other than that, We are going to get ready to shut it down. I guess I can take this off for now. We'll have that up. But yeah, we're going to get ready to shut down here, everybody. And like I said, thank you again, Lone Star. Take care, brother. I love you.
No problem.
Miss Jilly, same with you. Big Scoop. Have a good one.
Have a good
Have a
one,
good
everyone.
one.
Take care.
All right. See you later, everybody. We'll be back on Sunday.
Do you know Fry, Trix and Lyra, and Astra do? Let us go fly Cloud9, go with the dream you love and know. You love Trix FM, it's your home for music that you love. Lyra, Astra, Trix, and Fry, flying in the sky on Cloud9. Or is this all for fun? Lost at the star at night, you know that Fry will make it right. It's like we have gone too far,